Great, thank you.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 5:02, and if you wouldn't mind standing for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call of the board. Alan Bolzomi.
Here.
Laura Emsley here. Nancy Johnson.
Here.
Elaine Jones.
Here.
And Ned Norris, absent. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'm going to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, are there any trust board comments at this time? None? Okay. For the call to the audience, we do not have a call to the audience. Okay. We don't have an audience. Well, kind of we do. Okay, so then I would like to have a motion for approval of the minutes from the January 18th board meeting.
Move first.
Second.
Whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're going to move on to the general functions item B, the trust investment solutions and presentations. Today we have Wells Fargo on the line. Stephanie, is Tyler also on the line?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we have Stephanie and Tyler on the line. I also have attachments to the agendas. These are the attachments right here. This is what they look like, and they will also be posted with the minutes once we conclude the meeting. Oh, and I don't have the PowerPoint up.
Do you want me to read? Well,
Yeah, would that be okay? Do you mind?
I will. Technical, this computer was running updates, so I'm waiting for it to complete.
Okay,
So I can put on a secondary system, and just give me a minute.
okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Can you the USB drive, or can you email it to me?
I can. Is everybody okay if we skip to the wellness strategies while we're preparing this? Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and skip down to item D, the 1819 Employee Engagement Health and Wellness Strategies presented by CBIZ.
Hey. So, you know me, and we have Anna here. She's our wellness account executive. So, just as a little bit of history for all of you, the district has always provided some sort of wellness program. We did put it on hold this year. In the past, they've done biometric screenings and health risk assessments, and employees were able to earn gift cards with their fully insured vendors. They also had WellCOA in place, and they would do health coaching or quarterly challenges and just additional education. But what we were really seeing is just not a lot of participation. And so we talked about doing some incentive programs in the past, but again, without being able to clearly define a program and have measurable outcomes, we kind of just decided as we were moving into the self-funded this year that we would put that on hold and just kind of restart with the trustee board and talk about what is a wellness program, what can we put in place that would be a clear strategy, what would be measurable, and and can we get to an incentive point? Because we know that to get people to engage, we have to incent them. It has to hit their pocketbook. So Anna's here to talk about what is a successful program, what's needed, and then talk about a 3-year strategy and get the trustee board's input of, do we want to move forward with something like this and implement incentives? And ultimately what we're proposing is truly just getting people to do the right thing anyways. Go see your primary care physician, have an annual visit, have early detection, and just really get the be seen at the appropriate places of care, not the emergency rooms. Make sure you're, going to your primary care when you have an issue. So that's really what we're proposing, and want to talk about with you all. So.
All right.
Everyone has a tab. It's called Wellness. I put it on your, so that's what she's going to walk
All
through.
right, everyone, that's great. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all today. Wellness is really my personal passion, so I like to talk to groups about it. And my goal with today's presentation is just to give you an overview of how CBIZ can help to support Sunnyside with well-being programming, and then how we can advance your program or future initiatives so that, as Christine mentioned, you get more employee engagement, you're able to measure outcomes, and at a lower cost. So we can move on to the slide after the intro slide called Wellness to Wellbeing. And this is just to give you some background on the CBIZ philosophy and really our approach to well-being programs. So if you look at that left column where it says wellness programs, when a lot of people hear the word wellness program, right, they think of a traditional wellness program that solely focuses on those physical elements of well-being. So things like biometric screenings, health risk assessments, weight loss challenges, and those are all great and can be culture building in an organization, but they're just one piece of the overall big picture when it comes to well-being. So at CBIZ, we really strive to take a more holistic approach and address multiple areas of well-being so that employees feel like they're supported in all of their areas that they need support in. So on the right-hand side, we have our 5 different elements of well-being that we look at in programs. Starting with purpose, so having adequate resources for your employees to feel like they have a deeper connection to the work that they do every day. Social well-being, so providing opportunities to employees to engage with their peers and feel like they have social connections at work. Financial well-being, that's having resources available to employees to increase their financial education and financial security. Community well-being, that's connecting employees to their surrounding community of either where they work or where they live. To give you an example, if, say, an employer were to sponsor some type of 5K in the community, then you're getting folks out into the community and connecting them with that element. And then lastly, we have physical well-being. So again, the more traditional approach to wellness that we're more familiar with. So this is really the criteria we use to assess how robust an employer's well-being program is and how we'll monitor that moving forward. Any questions?
Mm-hmm. The descriptions you gave are different than the ones we have on the right column.
Yeah, so the descriptions that are listed here it's much more on the individualized level. So like social, for instance, is having supportive relationships and your love life. So that's what the employee would feel. On the employer side, it's providing those opportunities for the employees to feel that way. Does that make sense?
Okay.
That's a good question.
Would mental well-being, would you see that under social? Because there's nothing here about mental health.
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So sometimes we see these intertwined and other things kind of fall under these buckets.
Well, they are. I just wondered where you see mental health coming.
So mental health could definitely be under physical, it could be under social, depending on what the scenario is with the employee, but it's definitely encompassed within these 5. Any other questions? Okay. So the next slide is really just intended to highlight the potential impact that a well-being program can have on an organization. So most of us know that when we're taking good care of ourselves and practicing self-care, that we're more likely to be engaged in everything we're doing on a day-to-day basis because we feel better, right? And the research supports this when it comes to employees as well. So employees, organizations rather, that have employees with higher levels of personal well-being are more likely to have less turnover within the organization. They have better presenteeism, so they have employees that are more engaged, more productive at work, taking fewer sick days, and overall just contributing more to the company as a whole. Moving on to slide 4. So these describe the 6 essential steps that we at CBIZ feel are really critical for the success of a well-being program. And for the purpose of time today, I won't go into great detail of each, But for the purpose of today's discussion, I do want to highlight just a couple. So starting with organizational commitment, this really pertains to leadership involvement and their advocacy for a well-being program. And we really find this is the foundation for any successful well-being program, is to have all levels of leadership on board, not just the C-suite, but those that are also working with other staff on a day-to-day basis.
What did you say, not just the what?
Not just like the C-suite or like say
What's the C-suite?
like CEOs.
The superintendent in this instance, or the board level, the corporate suite of
Thank you.
executive
The
officers.
principals would be really valuable
Right.
in pushing forth the agenda and
Yep.
encouraging people.
At the school
to stay
locations,
in
yep.
school.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Maybe the school nurse.
We have, and we have engaged a lot of the nurses.
A lot of nurses in the past.
But, but there's not a nurse at every school either, I don't believe, so.
The next one I wanted to highlight was obtaining actionable data. So this would give Sunnyside a little bit more insight into the lifestyles and modifiable behaviors that their employees are engaging in, so through things outside of modifiable health claims. So when we're talking about actionable data, we're thinking of things like preventative care visits and obtaining some type of aggregate data from those visits, as well as like a health risk assessment, which UMR offers, that employees fill out a questionnaire about their lifestyle and gives Sunnyside a little bit more insight into their daily habits. Right. And then the other one I really wanted to focus on is the last one, outcomes and value of investment. So if you're familiar with the research of wellness programs and the efficacy of wellness programs in the employer space, you'll know that it's not black and white, right? There's a lot of gray area when it comes to assessing what's the return on investment in these types of programs. So at CBIZ, we try and look at things outside of just modifiable health claims. We look at what we call value and investment. So again, those things like how much turnover are you seeing within your organization? How much productivity are you seeing within your organization? And those are ways that we can gauge the success of a program year over year outside of, again, those health claims. Moving forward to wellbeing consulting activities. So this is just to give you an idea of my personal scope of services. And so my role as the wellbeing account executive is to really support Sunnyside in driving an effective wellbeing program and making long-term measurable change among your population. So starting with assessing the health risks within your organization and identifying the program goals you might have moving forward. I also work a lot with HR to do what we call an inventory of current benefits. So we look at what type of resources are currently offered to employees and where that falls within those 5 domains of well-being, and then see, okay, where is there still room for growth and the potential to add more resources moving forward. And then for the purpose of today's discussion, I wanted to highlight recommending meaningful and compliant incentives. So my understanding is that, and like Christine mentioned, Sunnyside has a history of getting adequate participation in their wellness program to justify the cost of investing further into it. So my hope is to go into a little bit detail today about meaningful incentives, what a meaningful incentive means to an employee, and how we can drive engagement into future wellness initiatives. Moving on to slide 6. So this sort of leads us into the discussion of barriers to wellbeing program advancement and what I see in a lot of organizations that I work with. A lot of times I see groups that are really striving to do something for their employees in terms of well-being, but they're offering ad hoc events with really not a lot of strategy behind why they're offering those events, right? And with that comes a lot of administrative burden on HR because there's not a lot of planning or foresight into what they're going to do in the future or what they're going to do with the data surrounding those events. We also see really minimal participation a lot of time if there's not valuable incentives in place or a long-term strategy. And then employers get really little insight into their employees' lifestyle and any preventative health risks if they're not capturing that effectively. Right? Another main concern that I see, especially from leadership teams, is, again, it's difficult to assess the ROI, so it's hard for them to sometimes justify investing in wellness. But then also there's a lot of compliance regulations surrounding the collection of medical data. So sometimes employers are really wary of that and don't even want to go down that road. So some recommended solutions to these barriers, based on the history that Christine and Eric have provided me about Sunnyside and your wellness program. The first recommendation I have is to work on developing a long-term well-being strategy so that there is a concrete plan in place and you're minimizing administrative burden on HR, you're increasing employee engagement through meaningful sessions. And this is a segue into the second recommendation, which is implementing a long-term incentive design that really supports your overall strategy and specifically incentivizes employees for participating in activities that raise their awareness of their current health risks. So specifically a health risk assessment and then a preventive visit with their primary care physician or establishing care if they don't yet have one. And we can also discuss how to incorporate what we call a cost-neutral premium incentive design to help fund future initiatives so that Sunnyside doesn't have to necessarily invest a ton of money into incentives outright. And then followed by measuring program success.
So can you tell me again, what is a cost-neutral premium incentive design?
We're actually going to get there. She'll have
All
an
right,
example if
okay.
you can hold on just
Okay.
a second.
Okay.
I'm curious as well.
And then defining program success. So to begin with, assessing the efficacy of a program year over year, we can look at those VOI markers that I mentioned and develop what we call a scorecard to start collecting that data and see how your population's health is changing after you do a more robust program. All right, so this is an example of a multi-year strategy. Starting off with, we're currently in the middle of plan year 2017 to 18. And so for this plan year, I'd recommend just increasing program awareness, revisiting any name or logo or branding that you once had that maybe was kind of put on hold, and then assessing if those are still relevant to your population now. We can also provide some sample vision and mission statements if Sunnyside doesn't yet have those in place, and then really focusing on garnering leadership support to make sure that they're on board and understand the impact that a well-being program can have on the organization. Moving on to 2018 to 19 plan year, that's when we really focus on discovering clinical results and rewarding participation in the program. So that would require the board to approve an incentive design. The incentives would go into place plan year 2019 to 2020. And again, the incentives would be tied to preventative visits with their primary care physicians and a health risk assessment.
And then just real quick on the 17-18, you'll see it says and set expectations. So even though we have approved incentive design for 2019-20, we're actually going to be talking about a potential approving that more this plan year, because the way we communicate with employees is in May, we get in front of them and do a lot of education. So as she's going along, and we were talking about when some of these decisions would have to be made of if you do want to move forward with any kind of incentive, we'd have to do it prior to communicating in May. Sorry.
No, great. We can move on to slide 9. And so then the rest of the time, I'm really going to just be focusing on incentives and what will hopefully drive engagement in any future wellness initiatives. And then again, how to fund this initiative. So starting with some incentive benchmarks based on national data, we've found that over 54% of employers are offering an incentive for health assessments and screenings. And by screenings, there's different modalities for screenings. A lot of times when we hear the word screenings, we think of like an on-site screening where nurses come and draw blood. And that is one modality, but you can also leverage annual preventive visits and have employees get a form filled out by their provider and submit it back to the insurance carrier, and that's considered a screening as well. And really that's, when moving forward, that's what I would recommend as best practice, because again, you're getting employees to establish a relationship with a primary care provider. We also see that 57% of employers offer incentive through a premium discount, and I'll show you why on the next page we see that number. And then we also see an average annual incentive of $700 per employee, which equates to, if you're doing a premium discount, it's about $25 per per paycheck on a 24 pay period basis. Any questions?
Well, you have one you didn't mention, the employers offering incentives for outcomes-based.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so we see about 14% of employers offering incentives for outcomes-based programs.
So what does that mean?
What outcomes-based means is not only are employees asked to participate in a program to earn an incentive, but they have to meet a certain biometric criteria.
So is this like stop smoking or lose weight or something?
Right.
Measurable outcomes. I had to lose
Lower your
8 pounds to get under my BMI for open enrollment in order to qualify for my incentive last year.
It took them a day.
Taller.
Exactly. I tried that one too.
Oh.
I tried that one too.
Or longer, not wider.
Okay, thank you.
Such an odd measure.
Really?
And that, it's great to have an outcomes-based program in place, but it takes more investment. Usually it requires a third-party wellness vendor to administer that, collect the data efficiently and safely. So that's why we see fewer programs.
It also can't be done without a baseline set of data in a first year, so first year can't be an outcomes-based program.
Yeah, correct. All right, moving on to what type of incentives work. So when we talk about incentives, and employers have been exploring different types of rewards tied to wellness programs for some time. And the research shows that in order to get really adequate participation in a wellness program, it has to directly impact an employee's pocketbook or their paycheck, right? So we see here that premium reductions on the medical plan can get upwards of 50 to 90% participation. And I'll say generally with this annual incentive of $700 per employee, we see about 70% participation.
Is that of everybody who has risk factors, or what is that?
Of the eligible, the enrolled employees on the plan.
So is that like 70% of everybody who smokes stops smoking if they get 700? What does that mean? I mean,
So-
what's
So
the?
this is percentage of participation in the overall wellness program.
So it's just the participants in the wellness program, not the total population?
Right,
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
when you're talking about them quitting smoking, that would be more an outcomes.
Yeah, but it's only the smokers who come into the quit smoking. It's not all smokers in the district.
Right, that
Okay.
would sign up.
Okay.
Correct. All right, moving on to considerations for incentive planning. So incentives should incorporate a health risk assessment and again, a preventative visit. And in order to achieve adequate participation, we strongly recommend a premium reduction be the incentive of choice, combined with a really robust communication plan to get employees engaged. And then our program goals with this type of incentive design would be to achieve a minimum of 70% employee participation in the first year. That's what we would strive for. And some other goals would be to just raise employee awareness of their health risks and connect them with their primary care provider or establish one if they have not yet had one. And again, to help hopefully mitigate any potential large claimants that might be coming down the pipeline that we can't foresee. And then a long-term goal would to then move an incentive design that incorporates spouses as well, since they're of course affecting the medical plan. Okay, so now for those that are asking about the cost-neutral design, and if you're wondering how is Sunnyside going to fund $700 annually for every employee, we have some funding options, and I'll preface this with saying that most of the organizations I work with that offer a premium differential go this route in order to implement it. So they raise employee premiums by the full incentive amount and then allow employees the opportunity to earn it back through participation. So to give you an example, if we were to do a $25 premium rate increase, right, they could earn that $25 back and not have any increase to their premium by participating in the wellness program.
But then not everybody's going to participate, so we make money out of it
So then
anyway.
they
That's
charge.
right.
Correct. So then that'll
Those
get,
that choose not to participate are paying for those that do.
Mhm.
That's how you build a cost-neutral program.
Exactly. And so
That's
here's
just
in red
wrong.
is the.
What'd you say?
I said, well, that's just wrong.
Depends on, are you
But-
trying to protect the trust's assets, or are you trying to think about?
It's just my first thought.
No, I know, I know, I know.
Yeah,
The greater population good.
yeah. No, it's interesting. Okay.
And in red is just an estimate of what type of revenue that would generate to further offset costs into the wellness program if 70% of the current population participated.
Okay.
And of course, we can work with the numbers a bit. So on the next page, it doesn't have to necessarily have, you don't have to have the employees earning back the full incentive. Sunnyside can certainly fund a portion of it. And so this chart just gives you an example of different percentages. If Sunnyside were to contribute, say, 50% of the incentive, then employees would just be having to earn back $12.50 of the $25. And so then the total cost at 50% would be $217,000 to Sunnyside. And then the revenue earned back from those that do not participate would be $90,000.
Okay. I don't have experience with this. What do you think the result would be as far as enrollment with a $25 increase? I don't know if that's a little or a lot for people. Would that affect how many people enroll? Or
That's approximately what we have, and we've got a CBIZ, I should say, 5,000 employees nationally, and there's about 85% enrolled.
Okay.
It's pretty significant.
And that's actually talking
$25.
$25
Yeah.
per pay period.
Yeah, it's pretty significant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there are some other creative things that you can do, which is you could choose to only incent those that are in the high deductible health plan, and you could put those contributions into a HSA account for them
Oh.
to pay for future claims. So you don't have to give them dollars or decrease their premium. You could choose to go the direction which Pima County did, which is to have an only high deductible health plan accounts over a period of time. And so you start to build their HSA accounts. Then when they get there, they have enough money to pay for the expenses that they need. So.
I missed the last meeting, so I don't know if you talked about this already. Did we talk about like the deductible, the high deductibles? We had talked about that as being, then there's lower premiums, et cetera. Is this fit with that? Does that work?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It works with any plan designs that you would lay out there. It can work with the high deductible plans. It can work with the traditional PPO plans. In the kind of the plan design element of the meeting today, we'll talk about how some modest changes can keep your costs down, but also provide the employee a valuable benefit.
Plus allow you to get some baseline data
Right.
on the rising risk pool that might not be in your view.
Okay.
And I think one of the important things that Anna mentioned is the biometric screenings on site are an additional expense for the most part for those companies and organizations that choose to do that. It's better to turn them towards a primary care provider, and there are lots of different avenues to be able to do that, but it's better to establish that relationship and to have them be able to go somewhere that gives them a more expansive assessment of their overall health and risk factors than just a biometric screening where they're just doing a blood draw and doing cholesterol and a lipid profile potentially. So it's a much better that you kind of get a global idea of the risk. And the plan is less subject for that cost anyways.
Do we know how many people, maybe we do or don't know, how many people already go to a primary care? I mean, do they not go because of the high deductible? Or, I mean, is that actually a change for people to start going to primary providers?
So believe it or not, primary care is covered at 100%, right, per the ACA. So everybody, you would think 100% would go every year, right?
Well, you would
Less than
think.
50%.
Okay, so that would be a
Preventive
change.
visit.
Less than
For
50%,
wellness
less than
visits.
50% will access the preventative care and go for a wellness visit this year.
But they might go if they have a benefit. Okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
And this last slide, the blue chart, is just a snapshot of how the incentive would be implemented on a timeline. So to give you an example, for the first year, the first column on the far left side, 2018 to 2019 plan year, the employee would be asked to do their health risk assessment, which again is just an online questionnaire, and complete, we have a biometric screening, but again through their physician, between May of this year and March of 2019. So that's quite a lot of time for them to complete those two steps. And then the incentive timeline, so when the premium rate differential would actually go into effect, would be September 1st of the 2019-2020 plan year. So employees are always participating in the program in order to earn the incentive for the upcoming plan year.
Pima County's cutoff date is February 28th. If you haven't met your goals by February 28th, then your discounts for next July disappear.
Okay.
That's how far ahead we have to do it.
Wow.
Yeah, ours is
Yeah.
end of August.
Yeah, and these timelines we kind of put out there, and we work closely with Laura on, what would be in the employee enrollment system and payroll, and so they can be manipulated, but kind of as a starting point.
Is there more to the program than just going to, doing the health risk assessment, going to see your primary? Are there? what
That's
else?
all we're proposing at this moment. I mean, ultimately, we would want to,
That's how you start.
yeah,
That's how you start.
Like I said, I didn't see a smoking incentive.
Well, you can go down that road as well. You can do a smoker, non-smoker incentive.
Well, I mean, I don't know, the things I was thinking about was, have we in the past, for example, invited Weight Watchers to have on-site
Yeah.
or smoking support groups or
They-
something
they've
like that,
offered all
AA
of-
groups or something?
all of these have been offered, and just ultimately, when I was looking at the past participation, I think the most participation I saw was back when they had United Healthcare, and they offered a $50 incentive to have their biometric and health risk assessment, and at that time, it was still only 15% of the enrolled population. So,
We used to have Rio said, we used to have a lot of exercise classes here that were well attended by the teachers.
they've had cooking classes,
Yep.
demos, but they're a couple people.
Well, I mean, it seems like you'd have to decide which health risk you want to do, because to me, this is a risk prevention or something program. It's not really health promotion. And so it sounds like we would want to address things that we think specifically would affect health and would affect our costs long-term.
And
Yep.
It's like weight loss and smoking in particular.
Just if you did blood pressure screening, that would be huge.
Well, I don't know, I defer to your experience. My background was in doing a health behavior change research with deaf people to reduce risk of cardiovascular. And all the theories I had said that just having the knowledge alone didn't do much. People didn't really change.
Yeah.
And if you had the knowledge and the skills, like you said, the cooking classes, but the social support was huge.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of this is, same thing with biometrics. Someone
Yeah.
gets their biometric reading, but they don't have a PCP. They're like,
What do I
they
do
go
with that
right
data?
back
Whatever.
home
They're
and
like,
they don't do
well,
anything
shit.
with it.
They
So-
did it, so they get the incentive.
But your piece about social support and engagement and adherence
Yeah.
is the million-dollar question. Because that's super hard. I mean, I watch our employees, they're super busy, they have kids, they gotta get up,
Sure.
get the kids to school, do all this. They eat some food, they work all day, they pick up their kids.
Well,
and
if you have a
know-
support group, if the whole group is going to get a discount if they all come for a certain amount of time for like 8 weeks, I don't know, you'd have a better chance of having sustainable health behavior change versus just, to go to your primary and get this work is important and to know, but that's, the research I knew about said that
It's
didn't
not
really,
enough.
people didn't change.
And unfortunately, go ahead.
Well, I have a question. Is your health risk assessment going to be through United's product?
Can be. It
Because
could be
in
separate,
my
something
experience
separate.
is you want to do these in the opposite order. You want to go get your biometrics from your physician, then do your health assessment.
Well, you
Then
have-
you have the numbers to plug in.
Yeah, you have to have.
That's right.
And you also, once you plug the numbers in, usually the health assessment, at least the product we're using, starts pushing you to.
It generates a
Yeah, it
plan.
generates, well, your
Well, it
plan
also-
says you should be doing this, and then it tries to get you enrolled in a different program.
It also sends you into disease management and care management,
Right.
things like that, programs that are built for the social support.
Like on
But-
blood pressure, they do the stress things and.
Right.
and
Well, I mean,
lower
there's,
cholesterol and all
yeah,
that stuff.
I mean, there's online stop smoking programs or stop, tobacco use and things that I've seen people use. Anyway, so I like this. I'm thinking, if our long-term goal is to reduce our costs due to health problems that people have, and therefore we want people to lose weight and stop smoking as an example, or.
So I think in what you're saying too, it goes along with, okay, first year we start with the basics, just getting people engaged, and then do we have additional funds if we do raise everyone's premium? We do have some additional funds to put towards other programs.
This seems like a long time. You get all this done year one, then you wait for a whole year before you ask them to do anything. It seems.
Well, we're hoping that they're engaged with their primary care physician, that does help take them to the
That's
right
right. That's
path.
right. I think your health assessment, risk assessment product is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would feel better about it
Then
if
you
there
don't
was
sit for
something.
a year, you actually start working on stuff.
Well,
Right.
or if it tells you to go do something, and if we have something available somewhere.
And I think that that's the idea, correct, is to utilize some of those funds that you're getting from that strategy to supplement with classes,
Well,
with
some of them would be free,
different
like
things
Weight
that
Watchers.
they could participate in, or maybe even, be required to participate in, depending on what type of
So-
situation
May
they're in.
evolve.
So one of the unique conditions that you have within a school district, obviously, is that you've got a lot of people at a lot of different sites, right? So what the most successful districts in building wellness programs have shown that they have someone at every site that is the champion.
Right.
Generally the principal.
I
and
saw
the
that, I
dic-
was going to ask about that.
And the
Just
district
'cause-
can sometimes choose to incent or bonus a principal for their participation of their faculty in the program. So all of the people on their site, they can choose to give a bonus to that principal if they'd like and create it as part of their contract. And some have done that. So the other piece of this is making sure that we operate within the cost constraints of the district, which
Right.
is any wellness program would typically add costs to what you're already doing, unless you do something along the cost neutral lines. And yes, that can be harsh to those that don't participate because their costs go up by the same amount as those that are getting the decrease. But there are other districts that spend upwards of $250,000 for health coaches to go and visit
Well, I'm
each
okay with that
location.
because we end up spending a lot of money on the people who are not healthy anyway as taxpayers and
Yeah.
everything, so.
So I think
I
that
think
that's
that
the
would
other
be-
piece is you got to make sure we operate within the cost constraints of the district and understand.
Which are extremely limited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
So,
correct, yes.
and as you build in a self-funded plan, so another thing, going from fully insured to self-funded, this makes a lot more sense in a self-funded environment than it ever did in a fully insured world, because in the fully insured world, you're just accruing any benefits of your wellness plan are accruing to the insurer that you are with, right?
I see.
So now in a self-funded plan, this is actual true risk and dollars that the district will spend on claims that you're hoping to avoid. So it makes a lot of sense to start the program and build it so that it will continue to drive down costs. You don't see any real impact on claims data for about 8 to 12 months from the start of your program, but then it starts to build on itself. So you will start to see potentially, if you were to implement a program for 18-19, you would see a decrease in claims at the end of 19, which would hopefully build reserves in the trust that would then allow you more money. So some of it's a little bit of
Yeah.
a chicken and egg conversation, right? Get the cart before the horse, however you want to say it. But you got to start at some point to really drive down your
Well,
risk factors and claim
Yeah.
costs.
Well, do we have anything in place right now? I know you said we kind of put this aside.
We put it on hold right now.
Are there anything going on, like, things I
Nothing.
mentioned that are meeting within the
Everything
district
is
Nothing right
facilities?
on hold, yes.
Okay.
Nothing right now.
But back to your point, Alan, a good place to start, I agree with you, is really incenting getting a preventive visit, because that's 100% paid for, and getting people to do that risk
You
appraisal.
really gotta make sure
And-
to emphasize it's paid for.
Yes, it's paid for,
Right.
and then incenting the completion of the risk tool, so you can get an aggregate on the population. I mean, maybe you know what your population looks like here, but I
Oh,
think
can we,
that's a good
could we
place
get
to
that? That would be our
start.
baseline?
Yeah.
So another,
Right.
yeah, you can get aggregate data, absolutely.
I
So
don't know what the
That'd be great.
reporting's like with the United tool, but
You-
at least it brings back to the planning team, we have a lot of people who are overweight, or we have a lot of people that smoke, or
Right.
we have
Yep.
people who don't wear their seatbelts, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that you can program appropriately. Maybe the
Focus
population
effort.
looks like the Tucson community,
You
which
know,
is our
every person you
experience,
push, I said this morning, every person you incentivize to do this, that discovers, oh, I've got diabetes, I've
Yes.
got high blood pressure, that's one person that you probably took off the list of your high-cost claimants.
Right.
Highest-cost claimant is $500,000
Yeah.
to start. I
Right.
mean,
And your
4 of them
smokers,
do
your
make that.
smokers cost twice as much as your non-smokers,
Right.
and your diabetics 3 times as
Yeah.
much as your non-diabetics, or your
We
managed
have lots of
diabetics.
Well,
So-
long-term,
undiagnosed
yeah.
diabetes and hypertension.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Southern Arizona's like the diabetes capital of the world.
But
So-
they identified themselves as healthy.
One of,
Right.
Push
I know.
that healthcare piece.
So there is one small dilemma that can occur when you push everybody towards a primary care physician, right? Yes, preventative care is covered at 100%, but if someone goes in for a primary care visit and they cough, or they say, I want you to look at this because
Right.
I've been having a problem, that's no longer a preventative
Right,
care visit.
right.
That's now diagnostic, or it becomes coded, and so if somebody does have an out-of-pocket expense. So sometimes you choose to partner with a primary care provider. Nancy, you have to be quiet right now. Sometimes
You
you
can
choose
listen.
to partner with a primary care provider that can also be the conduit by understanding exactly what you're pursuing, and you want it to be truly a preventative care visit, and it stays at that level, and so you don't go into the diagnostic and you don't go into, and then you have 2 sources of aggregate data, right? You have community and social support from potentially a series of providers that are now seeing those employees, and you have aggregated data to be able to enact change.
Well, my primary, if I
So-
came in for primary care, he would have me come back a second time for whatever else it was.
That's right. And so if you go, it might be labs and x-rays, it might be whatever. So that's the one caveat to turning, that I see,
Yeah.
as you turn them towards primary care, that it can be frustrating to the individual member because they go, what they thought was a preventative care visit now becomes a diagnostic
And that
test.
becomes the educational
And
piece that you have to
unfortunately,
do.
And we-
unfortunately, providers are reimbursed in that manner, right? So providers get a higher reimbursement rate if it's a complex visit versus a basic visit, or if it's a diagnostic test versus a primary care test, so, or a preventive care test.
It's
So,
still going to save us money in the long run.
absolutely.
That's right.
And we
And-
do have, sorry.
No, I was going to
Oh.
say, and calculated into your rates every year, you have the liability that everybody would go out and see the doctor anyways. So as a self-funded plan, if everybody ran out to see it, you'd still have that claims liability. So you might as well use it for your advantage to start driving risk factors down and get
Yeah.
out, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions on this topic before we move
I'm
forward?
not sure, but we can go
No?
ahead.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward with our first general functions item, which was the trust investment solutions and presentations. Wells Fargo, are you still on the line?
So patient.
We are still here.
We are so sorry. Thank you for being so patient with us. We had some technical difficulties, but it looks like we're back up and running, and hopefully you learned something interesting about wellness.
Yeah, we are fascinated. I'm sure she was happy to sit there with us.
Okay, so just so you all know, I do have the 2 slides up on the screen right now. So I'm going to click to the second slide, which is the strategy slide, and we're ready to roll whenever you guys are.
Wonderful. Well, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to the board. On the line with me, my name is Stephanie Jordan. I'm with Wells Fargo. On the line with me is Kylie Teran from Wells Fargo Securities. Before we start, let's give you a brief background of me. I've been with Wells Fargo for 21 years and been in banking for 25 years. Just recently, a year ago, I jumped into the pool of the government sector. Majority of my career has been in the commercial industrial side. Love the opportunity, love this segment. Again, we're grateful for this opportunity. We had a brief discussion with Laura on what the trust is looking for, a better rate of return. And what we're presenting today is the options that are available to the trust. Keep in mind these options are available, are within the parameters of state statute. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Tyler, but before we start, Tyler, if you don't mind giving a little background of yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tyler Tarian, and I work for Wells Fargo Securities. So, we have Wells Fargo Bank, and I work for the broker-dealer, Wells Fargo Securities. A little bit of a background here. I'll keep this brief, but I cover the Western United States. I cover publicly traded corporations. I also cover public entity customers, too, as well. So, even just in the state of Arizona, I cover large county accounts. I also cover large cities. And also other municipalities too as well throughout the Western United States. I work alongside our, and actually I'm going to stop really quick. Can everybody hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
The volume.
Yeah.
Yep, we're good. Thank you. Yes, we're good.
Perfect. So I work alongside our banking partners, and they will bring me in from time to time, and I'll work alongside them with accounts that have, potentially excess cash, and they're looking for investment solutions, places to park the excess cash, and then we'll have a open conversation dialogue, just like we're having here, to really understand what your main goals, objectives are, what your investment policy is, and that'll obviously vary quite a bit, especially with the book that I have. Some corporations publicly traded versus public entity customers too as well. So I'm very well versed with Arizona state statute and what permissible investments are, and that would be the type of things that I am fully aware of and can have that conversation with you and be able to present ideas, different types of product that would fit within those type of statutes. So I'll go through a couple of things. I know we had the initial conversation with Laura, and she was great and took down some fantastic notes. So I know there's a kind of a slide up there that I think she had shared with us too as well, but it'll just kind of give you an idea of what some of the things that we discussed on the initial call. I'll go over those things again. I have a couple of products that we deal and work with a lot of public entity customers in and with. And then at any point in time, please feel free to stop me and ask any questions, things like that. So, you have obviously a self-insurance type trust fund that you're starting. I understand from Laura that it's pretty new as far as getting a lot of the claims data and really starting to understand what the amounts are going to be like. So we have a couple of different things that we can look at as far as having those funds invested and looking at and picking up additional yield versus maybe just sitting in a bank account, savings account, earning a much smaller yield interest amount, just having funds in the bank. So I would say to kind of start off, one of the things that we offer and work with a lot of public entity customers on is our government money market funds. So government money market funds, just to give you a quick background on what that is, government money market funds basically is a managed money market fund that invests solely in all government instruments. So when you think about safety of principal being at the forefront in a fund or an account like this is, obviously looking at everything invested in all U.S. Treasury obligations and U.S. government agency obligations. The pickup in yield is substantial. So I did pass out one thing to Laura. It's one of the handouts. I don't know if you have that in front of you there, but it's basically just a fact sheet on one of our government money market funds. Government money market fund net yield right now is 1.22%. So if you're familiar at all with what you're earning in the bank account or with other bank accounts,
Tyler?
you can pick up a yield. Yes.
Is it the Western Asset handout? Or
Yes,
is the fifth?
exactly.
Okay, it's the Western Asset.
Which side, the government reserves institutional shares, or the other side?
Exactly. Yep. No, they'll start with the front page. It'll actually say at the top left, it'll say December 31st, 2017.
Yep.
Okay. They both do.
So the only reason it says that is because January hasn't came out yet.
They both
So
say
it'll
that.
come out usually, it's been about a week or so of the new month in February here, and it hasn't came out yet. But this is very close to what is as far as being up to date, and everything on there as far as the fund is accurate. So, like I said, when you're talking about safety of principal, this is a 100% government money market fund. It's AAA rated too as well by S&P and Fitch, and this would be something to where you could place monies into the fund. I had briefly talked about kind of the process with Laura, so I'll detail that again. Since you are a Wells Fargo banking customer, it even provides a greater access to you and even easier access to cash and liquidity, because you can actually set this up on your CEO online platform that we have, to where you can always monitor the bank account with Wells Fargo Bank that you use to pay checks, claims, things like that, and any additional cash or amount that you deem able to put into the money market, you can invest into the money market fund right there on CEO. Then if you needed cash into the checking account, you can do a redemption from the money market on CEO, and it would ACH same day into the bank account. So when you're talking about, obviously, safety principle, this is a 100% government money market fund, AAA rated, and also too as well, liquidity or access to cash. You have obviously very quick access to the investment versus other types of securities, where when you get into actually investing in individual product, and we'll go over one of those options, but when you go into investing into individual product, you have a maturity date. So we can invest out as short as you'd like, but you obviously have a fixed maturity date, and any need or access to cash before then, we would have to actually go out in the market and sell those securities, which would be, at that point in time, you have market risk and what we would actually be able to sell those securities for to liquidate those positions to gain access to cash. So this is one of the things I kind of like to start with, because it's the easiest thing to really incorporate. You can set it up online through Wells Fargo Bank CEO platform, and you can move money back and forth on a daily basis based on what your cash flow needs are. And that's something to where I think going forward, especially since this fund, this self-insurance fund, is very new and you're not necessarily sure what claims data is going to look like over time, this will allow you, one, access to cash and that liquidity, as well as the pickup in yield versus the funds just sitting stagnant in the bank account. So that's one of the things. That's a full fact sheet right there. It goes more in detail, and I can also always answer questions later too as well about this. So that's one of the things, like I said, that we kind of start the conversation with, because that can be something that we can easily implement. You can put it right on your online portal through Wells Fargo Bank, and it'll just be right there where you can move funds back and forth when you need access to cash. Second is the second slide handout, Laura, that I had sent over.
The
This has
fixed
our
income
Wells Fargo
sales
security
laddered
emblem on the
portfolio?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this, in our Wells Fargo security emblem on the right there, this would be something to where we utilize these with a lot of our public entity customers. They're very popular, especially when you're looking at the size of investment. I understand, initially that the size of investment is going to be roughly around $2.5 million or so, and maybe as this grows, we can start to look at other investment types. I like this though, and I actually put together an exact kind of a portfolio. This would be an investment of $2 million. We can obviously adjust it, but let's talk about the product really quick. So the product is, these are brokered certificates of deposit. So again, when we're talking about products, but then we're also talking about really what is at the forefront as far as what your goals and objectives are, safety of principal. So we buy these in increments of 250,000 or lower. So if you're familiar with the FDIC insurance, each one of these, as long as we keep them under 250,000, so in this case, you'll see on this page, each one of these CDs has its own individual FDIC certification number, which identifies it as an individualized bank. We keep them under 250,000, so they can be bought in smaller increments, but it's for easy numbers and the way that I would think it might look if you were to invest roughly $2 million. You have basically all 250 amounts or increments. And then what I've done is implemented a laddered type of approach, a laddered maturity approach. So if you look at the front page, basically what you'll see is, if you kind of look at on the left-hand side, you'll see the quantity obviously of 250,000, followed by the QSIPs, which are just the individual securities identification numbers. But then if you continue on down, looking at your columns over there, you'll see the FDIC rating, which I just talked about, and then right next to that, you'll see the term. So this is what I have basically done. This is just an idea, but we do this a lot with even corporations too as well, in any type of product that we're looking at or showing options for. Is you'll have two that are maturing in 3 months, you'll have two that are maturing in 6 months, you have one that matures in 9 months, as I'm just looking down, one that matures in 1 year, one that matures in 1 year and 6 months, and then one that matures in 2 years. That just kind of gives you an idea to have how we can kind of stagger out the maturities, so that you know that if you're going into this investment and investing out, say, $2 million, that you have two of these certificates of deposit that are going to actually mature within 3 months. So that cash, basically $500,000, will be maturing in the next 3 months, so that you have access to cash on a regular basis. And that laddered portfolio structure is basically just tiered out all the way out to 2 years, but front-loaded too as well. So this is kind of also a real quick rundown on kind of the market environment that we're in right now. We have a Federal Reserve who has basically came out and said that we're in now a rising rate environment. We have a next Federal Reserve meeting in March, where Wall Street economists and strategists basically put together a percentage or the kind of their indicator on what they think the Federal Reserve is going to do based on their notes from previous meetings. And there's almost a 85-86% yes or go ahead that we're going to see another rate hike in March, followed by another 2 this year. So when you look at that, and also one of the strategies behind a ladder type portfolio approach like this is if rates are going up and the rates are on the rise, we're not putting everything out 2 years and missing out on all of those rate increases over the next 2 years, or at least year, and we'll see what happens going into 2019. But say we have one in March, then rates are going to adjust shortly thereafter to where a 3-6 month CD bought at a certain rate will most likely obviously be offered at that point in time at an even higher rate. So when say the 2 CDs mature in the first 3 months, then we just simply have a conversation to see what the cash flow needs are, and we can look at continuing the ladder and putting these out another year, another 2 years, so that we keep the ladder going, and you obviously always have maturities coming in on a regular schedule. So these are all things that can be adjusted, especially with the insurance, self-insurance fund being kind of new. So a lot of the data that you have is not really all that clear as far as what the claims information is going to look like. But we're a full-fledged broker dealer, and so we have our full platform available to you. That includes myself for phone calls, conversations, meetings, and having the conversations with you as this grows, as things change, as rate environments change. And this is kind of just a real quick rundown on a couple options that we utilize a lot with certain municipalities based on investment, size of investment, and also additional pickup in yield. If you look at the rates on the CD sheet, you'll see the additional pickup in yield. So I mentioned with the government money market fund, you're roughly at around 122 right now is what the average yield is in the government money market fund, where when you look at, if you continue looking over where I was just on term right there, you'll have obviously the issue, and that's the name of the institution issuing the certificate of deposit. Right next to that, though, you'll see coupon. So that's your yield right there. And if you look at that going all the way down, even a 3-month certificate of deposit is at 140, 145. So you're looking at obviously picking up roughly 20 basis points on investing out in not just a liquid money market fund, but obviously you have a structured maturity date. But by doing that, there is definitely an incremental pickup in yield by doing so. And obviously, if you go down this sheet here, this continues obviously along where your 6 months are roughly 165, 9 months 170 range, 1 year 185, all the way into the 2-year range at 235. So obviously there, if you're having or you have balances that are going to be around for a while, obviously with investing in a 2-year type certificate of deposit like this, there's a huge pickup in yield there at 235 yield versus having it sit in a government money market fund or a liquid money market fund. So this is a real quick, I guess, rundown of some options that I do see and work with municipality customers on. Obviously, again, the things that are within Arizona state statute, and also too as well taking into consideration, key objectives. So safety of principal, then also looking for additional options to help with some income and picking up additional yield, versus some of the bank accounts and things like that. So that's the quick rundown. Be happy to just kind of, I guess, open it up, open dialogue, any questions or anything like that you have for me.
Yeah.
I would say just go ahead and we'll
Hi, this is
start
Elaine.
there.
Yeah, this is Elaine. I have a question. What I'm wondering is if you could do a combination approach, because the money market funds have a lower rate of return, but they're safer, and we can pull from them a lot quicker if we need to. Would it be possible to put some funds there and then to have our ladder start with some of the funds starting at 9 months, so we actually had a higher return on the funds that we put into the laddered portfolio? Like, could we have half in money markets, for example, and put the other half at 1 year, 1 year, 6, and 2 years, starting the ladder at 1 year? What would that look like?
That's perfect, and that's exactly what we do. So I would always recommend setting up some kind of or some portion of the funds in the money market so that you do have access to that cash. the cash that you need right away.
Well, thank you, I feel really
The
smart now.
additional amount.
Investor.
No, that's serious. That's perfect. I mean, that is exactly what I don't think is these,
Well, there's not that much difference in a
Most
three-month CD versus the money market, and it's easier to get it out and safer in money market, is that right?
well, it just depends on how much or when you're going to need that cash and what those amounts are. And that's really what kind of right now, I think we're more in the exploratory phase of finding out what these claims are going to look like. But you all tell me, and we have this conversation now, we have it again, 3, 6, 9 months down the road too as well, as we learn more and as we gain more data, things like that. So, but that's exactly the type of approach that we would take. Not only that is these certificates of deposit, it depends on the issuer, but, and that's also on the second and third pages. On the second page, there's actually a really good breakdown, but some of these certificates of deposit, they'll pay their interest payments. Some will pay monthly, some will pay semi-annually, some will actually won't pay until maturity, but if we have this money market fund, we'll have it set up to where all of your interest payments will come in and they'll automatically sweep into the money market fund. So there's nothing for you to do. They don't go into your bank account and you have to transfer them back. We'll have it set up to where when they come in, they're automatically, these interest payments are automatically swept into the money market fund, so they're always invested and always earning interest. So that's really the conversation that we will have to have, and you will kind of have to strategize as far as what those amounts are, right? So what's the amount that we want to keep in the money market initially? What's the amount that we want to invest out? And if we keep, let's say, $1 million in the money market, and we invest out the other $2.5 million, then is there any chance that you're going to need more than $1 million within the next 9 months?
Me personally? No.
The type of conversation that we would need to know. And if the answer is no, then the smarter, and exactly like you had said, the smarter thing to do is to obviously, the further out you invest, the higher yield that you're gaining. If you just keep, burning 3-month CDs on cash that's sticking around for years and years and years, you're missing out on yield pickup versus just investing out that cash in a 2, 3, 4-year, 5-year CD, because you're picking up a huge incremental yield by moving out the curve in maturity range. And you can see that, and you just kind of commented on it too as well, your pickup versus a 3-month versus a 9-month or even a year. So,
Well, what happens if...
That's a conversation that we would have.
Okay, excuse my ignorance, but what happens if you have a 2 or 3 year CD and it turns out we need the money? Then is there a penalty, or what happens?
So in this case, with pretty much any product, really every product besides the money market fund, if there's obviously a set maturity date, we'd have to go out into the market and we'd have to sell the CD for you. So that's definitely something, especially in this rate environment, that we don't want to get into or even...
I just wondered, what would happen if we had a claim or something. And
Exactly. So we'd have to go out into the market and we'd have to liquidate the security. We'd have to sell the security.
So we'd lose money on it?
In a rising rate environment, you could lose money on it, exactly.
Okay.
Because in a rising rate environment, a 3-month CD that you buy today, if the Fed raises rates in March next month, that CD might not catch up with what the newer rates are out there that any investor can obtain in the market. So the price would have to go down based on what the par amount that you bought it was at. Say, you typically trade in $100, $1,000 par amount.
Okay, thank you.
Have to sell it for $998 per CD to basically equal the yield that an investor out there in the market would be able to get at current levels.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Are there any
makes
other
sense, yeah.
questions? Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I was thinking about last month when we were together and we talked about this. Didn't we have another instrument that we talked about? Or no? Is this it?
No, for investments, yeah. These are all governed by the state statutes he's mentioned.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my notes from last.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
We're good.
When you talk about state statutes, state statutes, there's actually a lot of different securities that you can invest in. It really kind of depends on, the risk appetite, because, you can invest in corporate bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember maybe we had a little more conversation last month, and I'm just not recalling it, but I remember in accordance with state statutes, I had new learnings from last month.
Yeah.
And I just didn't bring my notes, but
And you
Yeah.
can-
Maybe the
Yep.
amount that could be in there.
Maybe,
There are other vehicles too,
Okay.
in addition to what he's mentioned.
but this is our
This
most conservative.
This is a conservative
Conservative.
approach, especially at the
Yes.
inception of a new trust.
New trust,
New
yeah.
money's coming in, you've
Right.
got to have cash if you need to pay claims, those types of things.
okay, so do we need Wells Fargo for any of our further discussion? I don't think we do.
They can-
Okay.
They can go home.
Tyler and Stephanie, thank you again so very much. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
No, please, yes.
Thank you.
Laura, you have my contact information, so please share that with everybody else. If you have any questions outside of this, feel free to send me an email or give me a call. I appreciate everybody's time, and if you have any questions, please reach out.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you again.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay.
While we're on
Yes.
that topic, just to put it into context,
Yep.
and this is off of the December balance sheet. So this wouldn't be
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
a most up-to-date reflection of our cash, but off of the December balance sheet, 2.48
Thank you.
million, which is up from November at 2.05. So we've been seeing a pretty steady cash increase of about $400,000 per month. Now, you have to keep in mind liabilities, right? That's the important piece.
So also, just remember that you're taking 21 deductions versus 25, so that
It
you're
has to
you're
spread
taking
us.
out more than is actually anticipated to be on a monthly basis. So there's actually more being deposited because you take in less pay periods than you would usually in a normal
We
26
don't
pay period
take
company.
deductions in June and July.
That's right.
Those are the 2
You
months
said
that there's
Mhm.
no deductions, and so that's when we need the funds to carry us through those months
Yeah,
for
yeah.
payments, right?
So while we're there, I wonder if we should list that as a liability.
No,
on-
I don't think so.
No, because we're like pre-funding the account.
There's no liability.
It's
At
not,
the-
it's not a liability, but it's,
Correct,
in those months, we're not going to see the revenue.
You won't see revenue.
that's
Okay.
correct.
We'll just keep it in our mind. So when we look at IBNR, the incurred but not reported dollars, roughly $850,000. So what that means is those are the claims where if we stop the self-funding environment today, we would have claims trickling through to about $850,000. The other piece to keep in mind is our monthly accommodation on the stop loss.
Right.
So how much, the threshold at which we would be reimbursed on a monthly spend, and that's in the ballpark of about $800,000 as well. So even though we have a cash balance of 2.48 on the December balance sheet, we have IBNR of about 800,000, and our monthly accommodation is about 800,000.
So about 1.6 million out of the 2.48.
Yeah, what does that come out to?
And as it's about 800,000. But as we talk about it, some of the future, kind of the next conversations that we'll talk about, we'll also address the reserve amount that is projected to be free cash, so that will be investable cash,
So that will drive what we...
what we do there. Yep.
Can you repeat what you just said, Eric?
So in some of the plan design changes and in some of the planning for next year's plans and contributions, there's a projection on what will fall out and be attributable to reserves. So there will be a reserve amount that
Okay, I
goes
see
towards your
what you're-
reserves, plus
okay.
whatever Sunnyside puts in from the initial investment or the initial capitalization of the trust.
Right, right. Okay.
So, and we'll talk about that when we get there.
So is there a decision that we can make today on investments and on moving money into investments? Is that a possibility that we can do that today? I mean, it looks to me like we have, what, $800,000 currently.
Well, what was he talking about 2 million? What 2 million is he talking about?
So when we initially had our conversation yesterday, I told him that in our account, there was approximately $2.4, $2.5
He
million.
set that up for a $2 million investment.
Right, not saying that that's how much we wanted
No,
to
you need
invest,
more.
but that's how much we had in our account, yes,
So
exactly.
we had a little sidebar conversation kind of over here. And not a recommendation because you are the board members per se, but based upon what I've seen in other best practices, you would still want to make sure that you can cover your $800,000, your monthly accommodation, which is that leaves you at 1.6 million. And then you have to think about your IBNR, but as long as it's in a money market, you would have access to it. So you might as well you could move
Right.
up to 1.5 into your money market and some laddered CDs. So you could probably put 500,000 in laddered CDs and $1 million in a money market fund, and you're earning more interest than you are today.
Right.
Well, that's more than I thought we could put in there, but,
Yeah,
you know, I'm
that-
good.
Approximately 1.5 million is
Yeah,
what
I
we
would-
said.
That
With
would-
a decent portion into the money market.
Yeah, so you would,
For
I
now.
think you would want to have at least 2/3 of that in the money market.
So, you know, it'd be.
And then if we had additional, we could move it into the laddered.
That's right. And then, so
As it starts building.
there is a contribution that's committed to by the district to pre-fund the trust, right? And so when that comes in, you could put that into the laddered because that becomes your true reserve, right? So you still have $1 million in money markets, which covers any month that you would have claims of $800,000 or maximum of $800,000 in any given month. You would have just a little bit of buffer there. And then you would have the 500,000 that's currently in the account, you could put into a laddered CD for future claims.
And so there's low risk with that.
And then when the trust funds, that could all be put into the investment?
Into the ladder.
So when the trust is funded by the
Uh-huh.
district, yes,
By the
you could
district.
put that into
You
a
could put
laddered,
that in
you
there
could
too.
put that into laddered CDs.
Yeah, if we haven't had to pull money out of our
That's right,
money
Okay.
markets for something.
that's right. So, and that's the type of strategy which would be common amongst municipalities and school districts.
What do you think
is-
of it?
I like the strategy.
Okay.
It's exactly what I've seen in other districts, but lots of districts have money that's sitting there, we're earning no interest right now, it's just in a general fund.
Right.
And so you might as well put it in to earn some interest.
Right, exactly.
So if you're getting 1.5 points,
Yep.
so,
That sounds good to me. I mean, it's conservative. I mean, it's safe. It's not risky.
yep.
Excuse me.
So, and then the other, to be more conservative, at the beginning of at the establishment of the trust, obviously you back off of that 1.5, and maybe you put $1 million fully into a money market. And then as the trust starts to build a balance, then you start to think about laddered CDs. So it's just where you have your money, you want to earn some interest though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think if we have that much in the money market funds, then it seems like it would make sense to put the other 500,000 to ladder it starting at 6 months or a year or 9 months or something like that, not why do 3 months?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, it makes
I agree
sense.
with that.
Longer term CD
So,
on $500,000.
I mean, to me, the only question would be where to start the ladder.
Agreed with that.
What do you think?
6 or 9 months.
9 months.
Do you think so? We wouldn't want to be that reckless to put it in a year? What's the difference in interest?
I think until you get it established, I think you probably want
I'd
to,
like to
wait?
get just like,
Yep.
just plan your budget.
agreed.
Before you do the year.
You
And
said
with the
6 or
interest
9?
rates increasing, we might have better luck getting
Yeah,
a higher
that's true,
interest
too.
rate at some point
Yeah,
in
that's
time
true,
too,
too.
coming forward.
Well,
That's a weird thing, you tie it up for a year and the interest rates.
Interest rates rise.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we're stuck in it.
Months spiral.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, okay.
And we have to do $250,000 increments or lower in order to be federally insured.
That's right.
Well, there's only 0.05 difference in
CDs, right.
6 and 9 months right now. There's a 0.2 difference between 6 months and a year. Would it make sense to put 250 in the 6 month and 250 in the 1 year, or is that too?
I keep them both in the 6 months
Would you?
because interest rates go up.
That's what I was thinking, for 250 and 250 6 month
That's not really a
CDs.
ladder, is it? But
No,
No,
but once
we
we
have
have the
to-
district funds that can go in, then we can ladder those out a little bit longer.
And
Okay.
maybe interest will be
Possibly.
better too.
So
what
1
do you think?
million,
What do you
In
think?
the market, money market, yeah, in.
No, I think that's.
When are the district funds scheduled to be allocated?
hopefully after this next board meeting,
Next
which is going to be
school board
on,
meeting?
yes, which is going to be on the 13th, this next Tuesday,
Will they do that in next year's budget or this year's budget?
in this year's budget.
This year.
Yes,
How much are you talking about?
between 686
686 and 919 or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that.
between that.
686 to 917 or
And
something.
if we
somewhere
still had
along
that,
those lines.
right.
and we
It's
still-
probably going to be closer to the 686.
And the
than
goal is to be fully funded at the maximum liability.
That's right.
With those funds.
And that's why we'll talk about the kind of the rates and the potential loss of through claims.
You guys pretty solid on $1.5 million?
I would start with less personally, me. I would start maybe a million and then wait till the district funds to ladder out your
What's the
CDs.
current fund balance? I didn't look.
248.
How
What-
much?
2.48.
2.48.
So,
I mean,
So-
there's enough in there, right? There's enough in there to cover the claims. There's enough in there.
I'll try a motion, if that's okay.
Yeah.
My motion
do
is
it.
to adopt this strategy for our investments, number one, and that $1 million be allocated to that strategy with $500,000 in the money market, and the other $500,000 in laddered CDs to be chosen
By
by
Wells,
Laura.
by Wells.
I was part of it.
The guy, the voice on the phone.
So I would say, in a
With a
laddered
short
CDs
term-
not to exceed 6 months.
6 months, thank you. That's the part I wanted.
One more time, 500,000 in the money market, 500,000 in a 6-month CD.
A 6-month CD, and then the last part of this motion is
Yes.
that any funds received from the district go into longer-term ladder
CD.
CDs when received.
I thought we had 1.5, you were saying 1 million here and 500,000 in the ladder, no?
Yeah, I'll have to have.
Yeah, so I said,
Oh,
if it were
okay,
me,
so-
I'd be slightly more conservative just
Right.
because of the beginning of the trust.
I agree.
I just think conservative is a good thing to be right now.
Okay, I'm gonna
So the
repeat
district
Say it
this.
one more
funds-
time.
Excuse me,
Yes.
so the district funds you're referring to are the district contributions?
So the district, so when we did all of the initial financial calculations to the maximum liability and the fully insured equivalent rates, the district committed to $800,000.
Mhm.
And so a small portion of that went in already, but the rest of that to go in. So between 680,000 and 917 or some, we've calculated those numbers, is remaining to go in. So they initially committed up to $1 million.
And the motion is referring to those funds at a higher
Higher
CD
time
rate?
period, higher CD time
When
period.
they
Yeah,
arrive.
when they arrive.
A ladder.
So to
Yep.
summarize.
Well, let me ask a question. So you're thinking, and maybe you're thinking that we leave the other 500,000, we started with, in where it is because
Just
it's
leave it where
safer?
it's at.
Because
Just leave it
it's
with the
safer?
claims account for right now.
For
Okay.
claims.
Just because you're immature right now, and so now as you start to see your run rate
Okay.
from claims,
Right.
you'll get more
And
comfortable
then
with it.
and then we can decide on additional, what we're going to do with additional. We might take that additional money and split it between money
Yeah,
markets.
absolutely.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
right. In our regular meetings, we can
Yeah.
always say, well, let's allocate some more over there.
Absolutely.
Okay,
It'll be
okay.
reported on as an investment.
So
I
when
s-
would
all right.
when would we be mature?
So
And you're saying.
Man, that's a loaded question.
Are you talking about me personally? No, so maturity comes after a full year at least.
So that 500,000 will sit not earning anything for at least a year?
Well, no, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying, you're at the very beginning, right? You're
Right.
5 months into a process. You could put it in there today. And just for me, I'd wait probably another quarter or a little bit longer.
We can
And
put it
I would
in
certainly
next
wait
time.
until the district has put in those additional funds, because that gives you
I
a
always wanna
further
see
comfort
where
level.
we're at.
Is that,
Right.
is that because it's more
Right.
liquid there?
In the
And is
money
it
market.
safer, it's FDIC? it's
Well, you may
whatever?
have to pull it to pay claims. Let's say you have claims
Oh, it's
that,
easier to pull from that than it would be
Right.
from money market.
currently you're running at about $500,000 a month of claims.
I see.
So,
It sounds as though it's fairly easy to handle the money market portion,
It
though.
is.
We can do transfers pretty
Yes,
easily
yes.
on the CEO site, which is nice. I'd like to just review
Recap.
what the motion is. To utilize 500,000 of the current funds within the trust account towards a money market, 500,000 ladder in CDs and 6-month CDs at $250,000 per CD. And then any additional funds received from the district for the pre-funding amount for the trust account will be allocated into laddered CDs to be discussed at a future board meeting.
Could you want it to say not to exceed 6 months?
Right, the 6-month
Yeah,
part's
on
not
the
in
Yeah,
there.
on the original.
On the
Okay.
initial, sorry, this initial one, yeah.
That's it.
Did you say something about a higher rate for the trust for the districts?
Yeah, we'll discuss that when it comes in.
A
We'll use it for longer term.
Longer
Not
term.
necessarily at a higher rate that we're
Well,
getting.
hopefully,
Will
the
be a
longer
higher
term
rate.
will have better rates.
Hopefully,
Did
right?
you put
Hopefully in 6
not more
months.
than 6 months for the current?
I have,
Okay,
I
all
have
right.
6-month CDs.
Okay. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Okay, thank you all. Moving on to the next item on our agenda. if I can find my agenda, I've written all over it.
Decision support tool
Okay.
demonstration.
The big one, 2018-19 plan design cost sharing options to be presented by CBIZ.
So if I could just really quickly, Laura, let's go to the claims activity, just so you can see how the plan is performing to date, which also is a little bit of the
So the December
financials
claims update.
that Anthony just mentioned. So I'm just going to focus you on a couple of pages. So in the fold-out pages, these fold-out pages right here, if you go to page 3, you'll see go to page 4, I think, in your, there you go. So you'll see, and this is the same type of report we went over last time, just to help you understand exactly what each column meant, right? You have the number of subscribers is the number of covered employees on the plan, which is 1182 currently. Total members, about 1,533, so that would be the inclusive of dependents number. Your expected claims liability, which is pure claims, that's no fixed cost. The expected claims are $546,000 for that given month. And Mr. Norris, if you look back in September, it was also projected, that's we're calculating a mature expected liability, not assuming any immaturity in the plan, meaning that the claims weren't going to be fully mature immediately. The maximum claims liability, so in any given month, that is what Anthony alluded to under your monthly accommodation contract, which means that you're capped at $623,000 in claims for the month of December. So that would be the worst case scenario for that month. Your medical claims paid in December were $413,000. Your RX claims paid were $139,000. There's no stop loss recovery, meaning nobody has exceeded the $200,000 stop loss level as of yet. Total paid claims of $553,466, which you'll notice is just above the expected claims liability. The admin fees of $89,217 gives you a total paid claims and cost of $642,684 for the month of December.
We're really starting to ramp up here. Is this what you normally see? Is
Yes,
this look?
there's a little bit of difference in this case because in the month of November, there was a claims hold for a brief period of time so that they made sure tested the system, made sure all the claims were being paid appropriately. So some are reflected in December, more so than they would have been.
Like, wow, that's a really significant difference here.
But,
Okay.
but now's the time at which you should be getting closer to 100% of expected.
Okay, good.
This is the time
Great.
that you should be running close to 100% of expected, obviously if the actuaries have projected it correctly, right?
Okay.
So your loss ratio is per your stop loss contract, you're at 47.2% versus expected, and you're at 41.3 versus expected of your maximum liability or your worst case scenario, okay?
But our monthly,
I wasn't following that last part about the 40, where was the 43%?
So under the column that is in light blue at the top says loss ratio, you have 47.2 versus your expected claims liability, and then contractually you're protected on an aggregate basis against your maximum liability, so you're at 41.3. If the maximum liability number,
Oh, at the bottom, oh.
Yeah.
sorry, if the maximum liability number ever exceeded 100%, that's when you start to get nervous.
Yeah.
the maximum liability.
Right? That's when you start to get nervous, because then you're going to have reimbursement on an aggregate basis, and your stop loss expense for next year is going to be much more expensive.
Okay.
Okay? Then you have each column on a per employee per month basis, which is what most organizations will look at that and say, okay, how much does it cost me to have an employee on my benefits plan? Right now, that's an immature number, so it's very low at $293.67. More likely, that will reflect the same number as the expected claims liability divided by your enrollment. That will, as we get closer and more mature, you should run closer to your expected claims liability. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Make sense so far? And then if you take a look on the bottom right-hand box, you'll see Sunnyside School District's estimated budget. And currently, you're running at 54.4% of the expected, of the budget number. You have to remember, we have to add to that the $850,000 IBNR that Anthony mentioned earlier, which would be in the event that the contract terminated and you stopped your self-funded plan, you would still have claims that were incurred prior to that termination, but paid afterwards. So that's your IBNR, and we do that on a quarterly basis, calculate that out for you.
Where did the SUSD's estimated budget figures come from?
Those are your premium equivalents
Yep.
that we implemented. presented.
So those premium equivalents times your enrollment. Okay? So the only other one I wanted to point out to you is on page, if you go to page 7, which I think might be page 8 in your book. Yeah, for some reason mine says 7,
I
but
think our numbers.
Wow.
in the extra page.
you have one extra page.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You want to look at the annual cost comparison?
Yes.
Yeah, it's page
So
7.
on, so on the annual cost comparison, we briefly alluded to this at the last meeting. This is what is projecting out as your total cost for the year. And you'll notice that right now, the projected costs are $7.361 million in the gray box under 2017-18 annualized. That reflects a 4.3% reduction in pure cost. But as you calculate that out on a per employee per month basis in the far right-hand box, it's a 2.9% decrease. So that shows that your enrollment is up slightly, but that you're still projecting to be a decrease over last year's expense for health benefits. Absolutely.
Heck yeah.
Okay?
Just history question. What were in the first 3 months of the plan, first 3 months of going to a self-insured plan, what was the runoff and how were the claims? But I would assume most of the claims for the first month after we went live were still hitting the fully insured plan.
Right.
They were still hitting the fully insured
And I
plan.
believe it was around over 300,000. I can get that number.
I'm just curious.
So the 850 is a conservative number, as you would always want to be a little bit conservative in your IBNR projections. But yeah, the true run-out claims, we can get that number. The only other page that you will sometimes look at in this circumstance would be page 8, which 9 in your book, which is we have one claimant that has started to appear on our high-cost claimant report, which is a lung cancer claimant. Obviously, there's not a lot of reason why we would, other than just to notify you that we do have a large claimant.
So that just showed up.
That just showed up this month, right? And so the current cost was $46,000 for the month. And depending upon treatment schedules, depending upon prognosis, diagnosis, condition, that could change. So you want to keep an eye on those as you creep closer to your stop-loss coverages.
The first one that's gone close.
First one. That's the only one that's the only one over $25,000 right now.
What's the deductible on stop loss?
$200,000. Okay.
Premium?
The premium? The premium amount on 200,000? I don't know exactly.
Keep talking, you can probably find it.
Actually, it's probably on your page 3. It is, your stop loss is $28.24 per employee per month. Okay? So now you want to talk about the plans for next year?
Good.
Would that be the right way to go?
Good.
Okay, so in your other binder that we handed out, at the last meeting, which you weren't able to attend, but we'll walk through it quickly and try to catch you up, right? So what was discussed and what Mr. Encinas said 2 board meetings ago is that the district didn't foresee any ability to increase their contribution for that medical plan going forward. He didn't see any additional funds that would be allocated for the state. He didn't see Sunnyside ability to put a higher percentage or any more funds for the benefits. So we talked about a number of different things that can be done to help mitigate the cost increase that you have to project. So as you go, we're going to focus first on the first 2 pages.
Is this the right one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So just under, right behind the summary, or the front page is the first page. We're going to talk about this. So these medical funding projections are all illustrated based upon expected projections, okay? We started out with maximum claim projections. We wanted to make sure that we protected against the worst case scenario. However, after that first year, generally you will back off and you'll go to your expected claim numbers because you've built a little bit of a reserve in the event that you exceed your expected claim numbers, okay? So some of the plan changes that we talked about at the last meeting that would be reasonable to try to keep our costs in line for both the employees and the employer Sunnyside would be to increase the out-of-pocket maximums first as opposed to the deductibles. So the out-of-pocket maximums on the 500 plan, for instance, which right now is your most costly plan for you as a trust because they utilize it and they get into the cost sharing quicker, it would go from 2,500 to 3,500. The PPO 1,500 would go from 4,000 to 4,500. And the change in specialty imaging of CT scans, PET scans, and MRIs from a $100 copayment to a $250 copayment on the 500 plan or deductible and co-insurance on the 1,500. That would be a more common best practices of those plan designs, okay? We would also add a fourth tier of specialty medications, and that copay for the fourth tier of specialty medications would go from $50 to $100 or 20% coinsurance, okay? So there are some plan design considerations that we talked about at the last meeting that have been kind of legacy practices that Sunnyside has kind of been implemented through a number of different vehicles, but have just kind of been perpetuated over a period of time as benefits that would not typically be included in other benefit plans of similar employers. One is bariatric surgery. So bariatric surgery is generally excluded. And we'll talk a little bit about the utilization you've seen in bariatric surgery over the past little while. TMJ is currently covered at 100%, but typically would be a deductible and co-insurance treatment. That's typically how it would be covered, best practice. Durable medical equipment is what DME stands for. Currently, it's also covered at 100% on the PPO plans, and deductible and co-insurance should apply, but do not currently. The allergy serum testing, which is also covered at 100% on the PPO plans, also should apply to deductible and co-insurance. And the non-emergent medical transportation is currently covered at 100% and should be deductible and co-insurance. So those are minor modifications that, as we've projected out what that would save the plan, is about 4%. Okay?
Let me see if I understand what you're saying. Right now, for example, with the TMJ, does the way it's currently covered mean that whether you've met your deductible or not, this would be covered 100%?
Someone on the 500 or the 1,500 plan, they pay nothing out of pocket for TMJ.
No matter whether they met their deductible or
That's
not?
right.
Okay.
Same with durable medical equipment, allergy serum testing, or non-emergent transportation.
So they'd have to, and the way we would change it, you're proposing is that they would need to meet their deductible and then the rest, okay.
That's
all
right. That's
I wonder
right.
why it was the other way before. Was there, do you know, was there?
Legacy programs,
It
yeah.
was, yeah.
Legacy programs that have been
Legacy.
requested
There you
through
go.
insurance committees and things of that.
You said there's a 4% with these changes. Is that all of these changes?
That's an approximate projection based upon the actuarial assumptions that would be for bariatric surgery, TMJ, DME,
For these only, not
Those are-
including the plan
that's right.
changes on top?
Is that based on our?
and the plan changes up
The
top.
plan changes
And the plan
plus
changes up top.
changing
That's
all
about
of
4%.
these?
Is that
Okay,
based
got
on
it.
our
Would get
popul-
us 4% savings?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Is that based on our population or on national? When you say actuaries, is that national or is that our?
So there's a little bit of national actuarial because you don't have enough claims data to really project based upon your own experience, but there is enough to say that this is relative to your population.
Well, do we know how many bariatric surgeries and all these others
So
we
if
had
you-
before?
If you look down below,
Oh, here
so
we are,
just to give
okay.
you an idea, under
Okay.
the plan year 16-17,
Mhm.
82% of your members spent less than $1,000 on the plan. 14% paid between $1,000 and $3,000, and 4% paid over $3,000. So moving the out-of-pocket maximum is very little impact to any of those individuals, right?
So that doesn't change the premium then?
It does, it drops it slightly, but not a lot.
Okay.
Slightly.
So these
So
numbers-
the other thing that I would say is, just from the out-of-pocket maximum perspective, the Sunnyside Unified School District out-of-pocket maximums are significantly below the norm for school districts in the area. So school districts in the area have typically between 5,000 and 6,500
What
as
is-
their out-of-pocket maximums.
What is the area?
Southern Arizona.
Okay,
All of the school districts in Southern Arizona.
okay.
Okay? So that's one reason why you increase that.
I
For
see.
plan year 15-16, if you go back just to take a look, take a further step back and make sure we're still on, we didn't see something uncommon within the district. 86% of your members spent less than $1,000, and 12% spent between $1,000 and $3,000. 2% only spent over $3,000.
I
And
think-
remember,
yeah.
so $3,000 is kind of a worst-case scenario under the current program because your out-of-pocket maximums are so low.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the change in the durable medical equipment because if someone needs that and they haven't met their deductible, they can't get a walker, for example.
So they would pay $500 for a walker.
But they don't have $500.
Right, agreed, but that's the exact same reason why some of these have perpetuated from a legacy programs perspective.
Well, I'm
Best
not-
practice would show you that durable medical equipment of comparable plans, employers, the like in Southern Arizona, would all have that applied towards deductible and co-insurance. So this is a benefit at which you're paying.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sorry I'm uncomfortable with it because
right.
it's a pretty big cost here.
Question might help with that.
Yep.
Who did the actual?
So our actuary in our office.
Dave, or yours?
No, well, Lori and Dave, their team.
Lori did? Okay.
Yep.
Perfect confidence in them. They're great. But
The other-
did they do an estimate of how many people are going to jump ship to the high deductible plan?
There are some migration assumptions built into the rates,
There
yes.
are, okay. Because I can tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have to educate the people that if this goes through, number one, you got to tell them right away. You got to tell them loud and clear
Absolutely.
when it's going to go into effect, so that there's no surprises, and that they can save money by switching to the high deductible plan.
Right,
Yep.
Because
exactly.
you give an HSA for the high deductible,
That's right.
That's right.
so they would have that money in their pocket to start with.
To buy a walker.
To buy a
Over
walker,
time.
yep.
Right.
I
And
mean,
the other
whole
current
idea,
reality.
to me, is to get people off the PPO and onto the high deductible plan. That's the only way you're going to save money in the long run.
What?
I would encourage, I mean, this is kind of weird, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but there's a group called the Ladies that do estate sales, and I always go by there. There are millions of walkers for $5 a piece.
That's a good
There are
point.
wheelchairs, there are, because families are like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
paid a small fortune for this device for my loved one, my family members. And my nursing staff are always bringing durable medical equipment. We have closets of durable medical equipment. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, maybe we can-
Crutches, wheelchairs,
That is-
splints.
And maybe we can
But-
incentivize people to go to yard sales.
But so,
It's-
she's
it's-
absolutely onto something, which is
Yeah.
that
Oh my
when
gosh.
you put in something like this, is when you become a better consumer as a member, right? So you're going to start looking for those opportunities because it is real dollars. So I may not have $500 for a walker, I may have $100. I can go to an estate sale, I can go
Right,
to
right,
secondhand
right.
store, I can go to a health
I mean,
clinic.
these are things that have the tags on them.
Right.
Because whatever the benefit was,
They took
the
it.
family who had a sick loved one just got plowed with
Everything.
DME.
Mhm.
No one ever used the DME. Bedside, come on, I mean, it's like this surplus industry that just like makes my head hurt.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's-
Well,
oh
again,
my
Laura's
gosh.
not going to like this, but it becomes upon Laura and her staff to educate their employees
Uh,
on that kind of stuff. I mean, you got to tell them where they can get stuff. But you also got to tell them, you need to switch. And
Right.
you need to be able to sit down with them, or you guys sit down and say, okay,
Uh-huh.
this is what your expenses were last year. This is what it would have been if you'd have been
Yep.
high deductible. You'd have paid less.
Yeah.
Yep. So you do have, obviously, under the DME, you do have some impact there, right? You have 274 services, you have 52 people that would be affected. If you take a look below that, you'll see the Magellan RX. So we also talked about adding the fourth tier of specialty
That's right.
medication and increasing that from 50 to 100, right? So you would have 18 plan members that would be affected by that change, meaning they would pay the higher copayment. So those are types of information where you're going to have to sit here and make a decision.
Yeah,
Is
right.
the disruption what we're willing to tolerate, or is the cost what we're willing to tolerate?
And those were our questions last month, was how many people would
Yep.
we be impacting with these changes in plan design?
These are actually kind of minor's not a good word. These are not insignificant numbers either, but they're lower numbers than I would have expected.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
you're-
the-
you're affecting
So
basically
it's
1%.
easier to educate them and contact them personally and tell them what's coming.
Right.
So on the specialty medications, actually through Magellan, we can probably outreach to each of them prior to the open enrollment period and send out a solicitation that says, hey, did you know your medication will become more expensive at the renewal date because of the fourth tier specialty medication? Here are some other options potentially.
Yeah, I was originally going to say, then you can go down to the, what's her name again? I've used them.
The ladies.
The ladies.
The ladies.
You can buy a dozen of those things and hand them out, but then your liability insurance will come
Right,
out.
exactly. My risk manager will be at my door.
And your calendar will shoot you, because if one person falls off.
That's right.
Right.
That's
I'd
right.
like to provide a little bit of perspective on what we've done historically at the district so that people can get kind of a snapshot into what the Insurance Advisory Committee has always done business or moved forward with our insurances in the past, just so that you guys have a little bit of an idea of what our employees have had and what they've expected in the past. We've had very little change in plan design. So, and that's pretty obvious, as you can see with these different types of other services that have been kind of grandfathered in over the last 15 years, if not longer. So, and it's been very difficult to get changes made to plan design, to rate structure, and that kind of sort of thing. So we've been stuck in a historical spot where we haven't been able to move out of that. Now, that said, though, our employees do expect to have things stay the same. They're not used to having changes. The thing that they had, we did have a change recently with the high deductible health plan coming in. We also increased the PPO 1,500 recently, so they have seen those changes come through. However, these types of changes with the out-of-pocket maximum increasing, and the pharmacy, I can see that being an issue, and the DME would be, it'll be difficult for them to stomach. Now, that's not saying that the district doesn't support making changes. The district does support making these changes. But I just want to bring that to the committee. I feel like that's my responsibility to tell you about our employees and their expectations.
Would this change be concurrent with the increase, if we do the incentivizing for well-being and all that, would we have this change in addition to $25 per person increases?
No, we talked about the wellness increase. That would be in 1920. So they would have the
2020?
2019.
Yeah, 2019.
To
plan year
2020.
To 2020.
Yep.
So they're gonna, if you wanted to move forward with that, that's still like 2 years away.
Right.
Okay.
Later.
So,
Right.
well, because I thought it'd be,
You're gonna give them next year.
You're
to
gonna
get
give-
all their stuff done,
Right.
so that they're ready for the following year of the rates going up and then.
Right.
That's right.
Right. And we also discussed at our last meeting, looking at applying a 3% increase to the PPO plans, as well as making these changes,
That's right.
correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
And we've got that
So I want to make
modeled
sure
out
that
for you.
that's still on the table. that they
Yep,
have.
so that's kind of the experience, that's kind of the changes that were discussed at the last meeting. That's kind of, we wanted to give you some of the claims experience relative to disruption and other things that would occur. If you fold out the next page, and I apologize, this is small print. This is small print, and I need to start getting glasses here pretty soon. So if you take a look in the left-hand column, you'll see it titled 2017-18, Current Enrollment Neutralized. So that means that everything that we're going to look at is neutralized to be based upon 1,178 employees, okay? So you have to make sure we're doing an apples-to-apples comparison. Version number 1 is the box to the right of that. And so you will see that version number 1 was renew as is, but based upon Mr. Encinas' comment that the district can't put any more money into benefits, that would require the employees to see an increase on their, out of their contributions. So they would be paying significantly more. They would be paying 10.5% more for the PPO 500 plan and 5.1% more for the 1,500 plan.
How
Okay, the high deductible would stay the same.
how much is that? I don't have, I mean, how much is that in dollars for a
So-
single versus family or whatever?
For the district, it's a total of $180,000, but for an individual employee, it might be $6 per pay period on one plan, or it's about, I think
It'd
it's,
actually be $17
For the
per
500.
pay period.
For single
per
or
month.
family? Is it single versus family? Is that how it's set up?
That's it,
Yeah.
right. It's
Yeah.
it's single, employee plus spouse, employee plus children, or 1 or 10, and family, which is spouse.
So what
and
would
children.
family go up per pay period?
On the 500 option, it would go up $100
Per pay period?
per month.
Per month, okay, so around 50.
On the HSA, on the 1,500 for a family would go up $45, and we kept that one, no change to that.
To the HS,
So
to the high
that's-
deductible.
Yeah.
So that's under option 1.
that's under option 1.
Okay.
So if you take a look and you look at today, $2.679 million is contributed by the employees based upon their contributions. 4.731 is contributed by the district for that health plan. That would increase the employee contribution overall by 6.5%. Okay?
Okay?
So option number 2 would be to make some plan changes to mitigate that cost increase. Some of the changes that we talked about would go into expected liability, the expected calculations, as well as the bariatric and the DME and those types of changes. That would require that you increase the employee contributions to keep the district whole by 8.3%. This is under version 2, and 3.1% under the 1,500 plan. So that gives you a 3% total increase to employee-only spend, or to the employee contributions. Okay? Everybody good
Yeah.
for there? So one of the important things to think about when you're making these changes is to look at how does this look, not at the end of the year, not as much, I mean, it's important to think about the employees and their perspective, their contributions that they're making, but at the end of the year, if you look at the combined reserves that would fall out under option number 1, would be about $980,000.
Where is that? Oh, down at the
In the
bottom?
gray,
Okay.
in the gray bar below
Okay.
option 1.
Okay.
979,000 would fall out under option 2. and you could see across how that would affect the reserves of the trust. And remember, the reserves of the trust are being built to protect the plan for future years.
Okay.
Right? So you got to constantly have to be making some subtle changes to either employee contribution or plan design. What we talked about at the last meeting for your benefit was the employee sees the employee contribution more readily than they do the plan designs, right? Because like we said, only 2 to 4% are ever going to see the out-of-pocket maximum. So making that change is disrupting very few people. But if you take $20 more or $100 more out of a family's pocket, that's a real
help
impact that you see right
Yeah,
away.
yeah, that's bad, yeah. I
That's
mean,
what you
it's
see
hard.
right away.
It's hard, especially these, people aren't getting paid that much, yeah.
So what the board had asked for at the last time was to look for options that would increase the plan sharing or change the benefit plan designs in such a way that would allow us to keep the contributions from the employees relatively whole, right? So if you go over to version 4 and version 3 and version 5 are those two options. So version 3 would be you would renew with a PPO 750 and a 1500. So you would increase the deductible on the $500 plans to 750. Okay. You would make the other changes that we talked about, the benefit changes as far as DME, specialty medication and such, and that would keep the employee contributions whole, so you wouldn't have to increase them at all, and it would also keep the district projected to be whole. So that's how you get to a rate pass, called in our industry, or relatively flat renewal.
And then,
And the migration rates, 3 to 15%?
Between 3 and 15%.
and so the
Yeah.
year-end combined reserves is, am I reading this correctly, that it would be a little bit higher for us also?
It would be 992,000
Yeah, a
would be
little bit higher.
projected to fall out into your reserves.
Okay.
Okay? So with that, to speak to the 3 to 15% migration, right now you had 8% move to the high deductible plan this last year.
Thank you.
So you're currently at about 38% that are enrolled in the high deductible health plan, and that's increased from a first year of 16%. Last year was 8% additional increase of enrollment into that plan.
Okay.
So if you go over to version 5, so you go to version 4, that would renew with the additional PPO plan changes, which include the bariatric surgery and all plan. It would also maintain the adequate reserves. It would increase your PPO 500 contributions, because we did talk about how we wanted to encourage people to look at the high deductible health plan and to move that direction. So it would increase your PPO 500 contributions by 10% and your $1,500 deductible contributions by 5%. So overall, that contributes 4.2% of increased employee contributions, and the district has a 4.4% decrease in cost. And you'll see how that affects the reserves at the bottom, which is $1,075,000 going to the
Yeah, we don't like that
bottom line.
one. I don't like that one.
Okay.
Well, the only thing I don't like about that one is you should I would recommend holding the district's contribution even
Yeah.
rather than reducing, because
I agree.
politically, that's
That's
not
going
going
in
to
the
work.
wrong
Agreed.
direction.
Agreed.
I agree.
Because the employees are going to think, well, you lowered yours and you screwed us.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's not a good
So
one.
I would keep theirs at
So you're looking more at option 3 to make
Yeah.
to make a plan design change, maybe to go to 500 to 750. So
I'm looking at 4, but leave their rate the same.
okay, so
That increases your reserve.
okay. So on version 5 would be the increase from a 500 to a 750 plan. The additional plan changes, including the bariatric surgery, DME, and other things we talked about. And that would be no increase in contribution for the employees, and it would also be no increase to the district. So that keeps them very flat. So what that tells you is that 750 deductible change is that 0.4% basically that you're going to get.
I'm a real proponent of trying to incentivize them to move to the high deductible plan. And if they don't have a rate increase, and all they
They're
have
not
is a
gonna do it.
deductible increase, they're not going to move.
That's right.
And until you get at least 50% of your employees on the high deductible, you're not going to see any significant changes in your return on investment. I mean, your reserves are not going to grow by leaps and bounds, and you're not going to be able to lower people's cost until you get people into that plan.
Right. So to your point, high deductible health plans and consumer-driven behavior is what drives costs down. to your point as well. So you look for other alternatives. You look for not running to the emergency room, but going to a convenience care or a health clinic or something along those lines. You look for alternatives to your high dollar medications. You look for an outpatient imaging center as opposed to an inpatient hospital imaging center. Those types of decisions are driven by whether you have skin in the game in a high deductible health
Do you have
plan.
online teledoc type stuff?
And yeah,
Yes.
and generally speaking,
Don't get me started.
38% now are most likely those that are going to benefit from, they're healthy, they're not using the doctor very often, they're not the people that you need to change behavior for
What
them.
are our
we need to get
copays
on
on
that.
prescriptions right now? I mean,
10, 30, and 50.
Okay. Those would not change on
Well, and
these.
then listening to.
Except
Except for the high-
specialty drugs,
Specialty.
and that's going to impact all of
What's your copays on a high
18 people.
deductible plan?
Copays
For
on,
drugs.
it's a 100% plan, so remember, it's only deductible. So once they hit the deductible, they're covered
What
100%.
about maintenance drugs? Are you giving those for free or are they paying for them?
They,
It depends on what they are.
Depends on
So
what they
like, yeah, you can go and,
Well,
like,
antibiotics, I'm
allergy
thinking about
medicine
things
could be
like-
free.
Well, so there's
Like
a
antibiotics.
limited preventative medications that
Right.
can be
It
covered at
just
100%,
depends
but
from-
antibiotics would always cost. So amoxicillin, on a high deductible plan, so you have a copayment, you have a $10 copayment on your PPO plan, you would pay $10 to go get amoxicillin. If you pay it on the high deductible plan, it's $2.
Because of the discounts?
No, because that's what it costs.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, prescriptions
what
are
it costs
super
now?
cheap on the high deductible health plan. So,
Oh.
well, some of them.
So,
I thought-
so anybody that goes to fill for
Yeah.
amoxicillin on a PPO plan at a $10 copayment is overpaying for that amoxicillin.
Yeah.
You gotta build a PPM.
Lots
But
of
they don't-
times the
but
high
most
So that
people don't-
doesn't, so that doesn't, so if it, I'm just, what you said, I'm surprised, so if they pay $2 on the high deductible, then the $2 applies to the, but they're just paying at cost, they're not paying an actual copay, they're just paying at
Right,
cost.
and that's what happens on the high deductible plan, you pay the actual cost of care, that's why you become a better consumer.
The one that shocks people on high deductible is when you go in and you get some drug that's very expensive.
Right.
You know, some antibiotics are very expensive, and you get those,
Yep.
and, you know, you're looking at $125 for a bottle of pills, and that's just the way it is. Plus, you got your HSA to pay for it.
Mhm.
The first
Well,
5
do we have tiers? I mean, I just went on Medicare list year, there's tiers of medications, and so the cost depends on what tier. Do we have that?
That's in the PPO plans, in the high
Okay.
deductible plan, you pay the true cost, so there's no
Okay.
tiers, there's no co-payments assigned for
That's
those.
also where most of our employees in Pima County become a very good shot.
Yeah, yeah, good.
They use the online stuff and they look at what the drug costs at all the various pharmacies. Walgreens is too expensive, and then you go,
yep.
Drive to Nogales,
Yeah.
that's
So-
what I did. Drive to Nogales.
Go Walmart.
You
but a
can,
lot of people do that.
Yeah, they do,
there are thousands of people down there
yeah,
buying medications.
yeah. Anyway, okay,
So,
let's look.
so I guess the gist of this is, we can model whatever you'd like to
Right,
see.
And I think it's somewhere in between Alan's comments and not picking up too much change based on current reality around your employee base. So somewhere in that middle piece.
And what I would tell you is that the first thing people see when they go to an open enrollment meeting tends to be the deductible. And
That's
the
right.
second thing will be the
Right.
cost out of their pocket.
Pocket.
Those are the
Right.
first two things they see,
That's why I'm looking at version 2.
okay?
And keeping the deductibles the same, but making all those other additional plan design changes.
Well, that one has an increase in.
In contribution.
Yes.
They would have an increase in what comes out
But
of
you're
the
And
thinking-
the discussion, the last meeting was showing a cost increase, no matter what, right?
I think that would,
What?
So the other thing is, all of the school district all of the employees enrolled on the plan got a decrease in their rates last year.
Last year,
oh,
So this is basically taking them back closer to where they were 2 years ago.
right?
So most best practices, that employers employ are to increase slightly year over year that cost to make sure that everybody understands healthcare is going up.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so you like 2 because it keeps the PPO 500? Is that why you like it? The
Yes,
others,
because
the
it
others
keeps
only
the
have 750.
deductibles- Right, it keeps the deductibles the same, and it has an increase on the PPO 500 and the PPO 1500, but it's not as steep as version 4.
so you're hoping you can
Because
drive
version,
some of them to the.
Yep, slowly but surely. I know, and
So-
What did you tell your employees last year when the rate went down? It's going to go down forever?
Yeah, that's what I was
No.
wondering.
No.
Because I know what they
No, no.
heard.
Bait switch.
Right.
No, they didn't.
What they
Right.
heard was my rate's going down and it's never going up.
Oh.
And we have had rate decreases in the past. We've also had rate increases in the
So you can
past,
trend
right
it.
after.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
I'm okay with option 2. I think that's a good option.
Yeah, it's probably a middle road. I mean, not too.
Yeah, if you put the lowest deductible at $750, that for some people means an increase of $250 over the year, which is probably more than if you have the monthly increase, the 3% increase. Is that
I
right?
actually do have the example for
Mr.
option
Norris
2
had a comment,
and
too.
4. If you
I have a
want to
question.
look at page.
Yep.
Okay.
Check.
Explain to me the decrease in the Sunnyside contributions under option 4?
Uh-huh. That's purely the way in which, so you would have the increase in contributions at 10% under the 500 plan and 5% under the 1500. And after you've taken that into account, the total cost is going to go down, go down for Sunnyside, because you'll have those contributions to pay for claims. So,
But that's a bigger increase for the consumer.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So that's why the 8.3,
So you could take, like Laura said, you could take and go apply the contribution increases in version 2 to version 4, and that gets you more to a district is kept whole.
Kept whole.
Right.
And that would also keep your deductible the same at 500. It would encourage people, it is encouraging people to move or consider the high deductible health
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
It
Because
is
they're
showing,
getting
it
an
is showing
increase.
those on the PPO plans that those are more expensive. And it's becoming, it's pushing them the right direction to become consumers. And Chris has exactly what we can pass out to you to show how it impacts each employee as far as the contributions they would have, so.
So this is
And this one did also
2.
exclude bariatric and adult.
Yes.
stuff.
Yes.
So the district
Yeah, I think that's-
contributions
yeah.
would remain the same?
Yes. Yeah. Or the projected costs, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's why, so you just hit on a good point. So the district contributions are projected to remain the same, but we always have to remember, being the self-funded plan, you have the liability that the district's costs could go up if you start burning into those reserves and if you have excessive claims, right? So it's always important to remember that. That's why you start to build the reserves.
So this is
Can you
2.
talk a little bit more about the reserve balances on each one of these
Sure.
options?
So the reserve balances are shown that we were asked and wanted to provide a 3-year look, right? So this year, you're making decisions for the 18-19 plan year, or what the plans will look like and what the contributions will look like. The gray bar across the bottom is how that will impact the reserves that will be available at the end of the year to be invested.
so that's how much is going to increase the reserve?
That's right.
Not the total reserve?
That's how much, and the net increase for for this year.
So as an example, on version 1.
Yep,
The year-end reserve is going to go up to after year 2, so after 18-19.
yep,
It goes up to 980,090.
yes.
Where we're at right now is 980,000.
You're at 980,000 right now, right?
And so then the next one, we go down. Option 2, we go down.
Well, very little, so
So these options are
little
only
teeny
increasing the
bit.
reserve slightly.
it's $1,000.
You're only, that's right, and that's what the actuary said, was these options are very modest, very mild, very small changes to your
To the
reserves.
reserve, yeah.
But you do see a slight decrease or slight increase depending upon the change you make in this first year.
Can
So
you-
then go back, Laura, follow that down, so I could just explain it to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Follow that down to the bottom boxes for year
Mm-hmm.
3, okay? So assuming we've made those changes, and without any other changes, you ran at 80% on the left, you'll see running at 80% of expected plus your IBNR, running at expected, running at maximum, right? That is how your reserves would be impacted based upon that utilization rate. So you would see an increase of 175,064 potentially if you ran at 80% of expected. You would see a loss of 227,491 if you ran it at maximum. So this is really to give you a look and say, okay, you've got to maintain an adequate reserves to protect the plan for now and for the future. And so it requires you to make subtle changes each year, possibly in both contributions and plan design, possibly in one or the other. But
So back up to that first gray bar.
Yep.
Under version 3 and version 5, there's 0% rate increases, but yet the reserves are increasing.
That's because we don't have the 500 deductible.
We increased
We went up, there's only
You've made some
750.
plan
That's because of the increase in the deductible.
you've made some plan changes
Okay.
that will
Coming out of
decrease the claims cost.
Right,
And
not coming out of our
Yeah.
reserves.
That's right.
Okay, got it.
So that's what your end of the year 2 reserves would look like, projected to be. And of course, that depends on how you run. So if you run it in year 2 at 80% of expected, those reserves will be higher. If you run it, those are at expected. So if you run at maximum, those will be significantly lower.
I'm just
Laura,
curious
does that
about
make sense?
something. I'm noticing.
It does make sense, and now I'm worried about our reserves.
No, we're good, we're good.
All right.
Well, I was a curious question. I'm looking at option number 2, and I'm looking under employee per pay period contribution. And employee plus spouse is $431, and employee plus child is $362. Why is it, do you know why? Is it?
Because a spouse costs more than
Spouse
children.
They
than
do?
children.
Absolutely.
Oh, children are
My
cheap
kids
to
were
insure.
expensive.
Oh,
Yep.
my goodness.
Well, they had
So-
asthma and eczema.
Oh,
and, you know,
There's
but-
actually-
80% of the kids are healthy.
That's actually,
20%.
yeah, there's
Okay.
actually an actuarial adjustment that goes on, it's called tiering or sloping. And so the employee only is obviously a 1, employee plus spouse is usually 2.1 or 2.2, employee plus children is 1.7 or
I'll be darned.
1.8,
Oh, it's interesting.
and family is usually 3.2.
I thought children are
An
smaller.
outlier.
I thought children are smaller, they should be.
No, they're actually very
They're
inexpensive.
cheaper,
Yeah.
okay,
Very
okay.
inexpensive.
Thank you.
So it sounds to me like you're kind of settling on version 4,
I was looking at 2.
but with an adjustment to 8.3 and 3.1% from a cost increase, which would get the district to a made whole perspective.
Rather than negative.
And the employees would see a slightly smaller increase than under version 2, or version 1, I mean.
And we took out the other things.
Yeah.
Why do you like that one instead of 2?
2, because the employees will see a higher
A higher
increase
increase.
In 2?
in 2.
Yeah, because we're
It
going to
says
adjust.
Oh, it says 3%, but how much did you say if we adjust for the, if we make the employer 0, then what does that make the employee increase?
So that's going to go down slightly below 3%.
Okay.
We're
Yes.
talking option 3 with the increases of option 2.
Well, it keeps,
Option
Version
4.
four.
Version 4.
Version
With
4
the
option,
increases to,
so it's
Of
still,
option
all
two.
right, so if we do that, then we keep the 500, the 500, and we keep the employer the same, and then that drops, with the other changes, that drops the employee increase below 3%?
that drops it below 3%.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the employee sees a little increase in what they're paying,
That's right.
but their deductibles are all staying the same.
Yep.
And the
then
district isn't saving any money,
That's right. And then the out-of-pocket maximum goes up, but that affects very few people.
very few people. And then we're paying attention to our reserves down here as well.
That's right. That's right.
Oh.
So
Okay, that
I
looks
would say
much
that
better.
would be a good steward of your responsibilities. And I think that's the appropriate type of reaction for a trust board to make. So just keep in mind that each year as you go through this, you'll want to be thoughtful about, okay, we have to acknowledge that costs are going up every year. For whatever reasons, whether it's pharmaceuticals or whether it's high-cost treatment, costs are going up every year. And so the projected costs are what we have to base our future discussions on, not what we have had historically, but what it's going to look like in the future.
And if we have higher reserves, we have a better opportunity more to put into well-being program, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly where you would take potentially some money to put back as additional benefits to the members by a well-being program.
I wish we could do that now, then they might not, they feel like they're getting more for their increase, but yeah, okay.
So would you like a motion?
Hold on one second.
Not yet.
Hold on one
You
second.
did the last
I
one.
know. I'm going to hold it up for just 1 second.
That's right.
Okay, so on this, on the
You're right, I'm just
version 4, the PPO plan changes are the out-of-pocket maximums.
No, there's no,
The specialty imaging
I thought Plan 4, there was no change in.
No
There's
no
no
deductible.
No
deductible.
Out-of-pocket max, yes.
Because that's very few people that will
Yeah,
hit that.
The 500 and
very few
the,
people
That's
ever hit that.
That's the
Pocket max.
4%, the 4%, right? They're over 3,000. Okay, so I just want to make sure I fully understand what we're looking at here.
Yep.
Okay, so those PPO plan changes, the out-of-pocket maximum, the specialty imaging, and then the pharmacy specialty drugs are all incorporated in this change, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
well, I don't understand, I'm confused about the out-of-pocket. What's the PPO 500? I thought the 500 was the maximum
No, that's the
out-of-pocket.
That's the
deductible.
deductible.
The out-of-pocket maximum is 2,500 currently,
Right.
and that would go up to
So I've got to pay
3,500.
till I get my
Oh,
deductible.
I see what you
and
mean. So
then-
that's how high it has to go before,
It's my
then it's
stop
100%?
loss.
Then a percentage,
Right.
then there's a percentage,
So
they
it's
they
the
would pay
employee
80%.
stop loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
It's like an employee stop loss, right?
Okay, okay.
That's how much.
All right, but we're keeping the PPO 500, that's what I was, correct?
PPO
Yeah,
500.
that's in the
PPO
version 4, okay.
1,500.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, it's only 500 or 1,500? There's no 750 in that one?
Yeah.
Right. Version 3 was the one with the increased deductible. Version 4 is the one
Version 3
without the
option, or
increased
Version
deductible.
4 option.
So, okay, so then we increase the PPO contribution. Okay, so we're looking at the employee contribution of 4.2% increase, but we're going to spread
Drop it,
that,
yeah.
drop it by the 0.4% for the district increase, right?
Yes.
So that's a 3.8 increase instead.
He
for
said it'd be
the-
below
No.
3%.
Oh,
He
so
said it-
we're getting
No.
down
So you're dropping the employee contributions, which are currently at 4.2.
to 3.
You're increasing what the district is projected to pay because it's under what it has paid historically, right? So it's
Right.
0.4% under.
0.4% under.
So that 0.4% is going to drop more than the 4.2 because the district is putting
Okay, got it.
4.7 in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 2.6 million is what the employees are putting in.
So
that's
we
gonna
don't know
that's
what
gonna
their
be a little
increase
bit
is
below
going to be.
3%.
Okay.
It's going to be right
A little
around,
bit
right
less.
around 3%. a
Oh,
little
right
bit below.
around 3%,
Yeah.
okay. But
Right
then the
around.
district cost is remaining neutral.
Right.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. And then are we sticking with the PPO 500 contributions increasing by 10%?
No.
The 8.3.
8.3
And 3.1.
and 3.1.
So it's like,
That'll lower the,
Okay.
increase the county's school district.
That's right.
Okay, got it. And then my last question is on, here it says the exclusion of bariatric services. Is that the only exclusion? The rest of these stay the same?
The exclusion it's the only exclusion,
The
is
others
bariatric
are
surgery.
just
The others go to
changed.
deductible and co-insurance,
Okay.
which are the
So all
DME,
of
the
these then
TMJ.
are going to still be changed?
Yes.
But they're not going to be?
Excluded,
okay,
no.
Got it. Okay,
Just
that
apply-
makes sense.
Bariatric surgery
Apply to
is
the
not a
di-
covered benefit
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand the. all others.
they need to go to our programs for wellness, that,
Right?
Could I ask
That's a topic of discussion.
yes.
that in the motion regarding bariatric services, that we specify whether or not we want to grandfather the benefit for
Oh,
individuals
yes.
who are currently
In process?
in
Right.
process? Because it's about a 6-month
Yeah.
Yeah,
timeline.
I think so.
Yes, I think we
So-
definitely should. And
Yeah.
we also talked the last time about outlining any sort of needs for bariatric services if it's medically necessary.
An appeal, some kind of an appeal
Mhm.
process?
Right.
So
some
there is,
people that are
there's
metabolically
an inherent
compromised.
appeals process
Yeah, it's
for
right
anybody
built in,
that,
isn't it?
that is built in, but we talked about how first level appeal is based upon whether the plan covers it or not, so
Right.
the first level appeal would be denied.
Uh-huh.
The second level appeal would be a peer-to-peer discussion with the doctor and the medical director to oversee it, and they would determine whether it truly is medical necessity. And then if that gets denied again, there is the right of the member to file a third level appeal with completely independent of UMR and of Sunnyside, that would go to an independent third party, and they would make a decision based upon clinical notes and et cetera. So
Okay.
there's appeals processes built in already.
Yeah, but if people are in process already, or whatever the process is, seems like we should, in good
Right.
faith.
Okay.
Does it make sense, Laura?
Yep.
Everybody good with that? So I think you have a motion, right?
Have a motion.
Want to repeat, just to be sure?
You want me to say it?
Well, can you?
Go for it.
You need
I
to
don't know
know.
if I'm allowed to because I have to do all this.
That we adopt version 4, option 3, with the following change. Mr. instead of 10% and 5%, we use 8.3 and 3.1%
On the PPO plans.
on the PPO plans. And that we grandfather the current employees for 6 months. And that we...
On bariatric.
For bariatric
For
surgery.
that are in the
bariatric
process.
surgery.
Uh-huh.
And I think that was it. I don't think we need to say anything about
And you
that.
adopt the other plan design changes.
And we adopt the other plan design changes.
Uh-huh.
And does that cover the revision of the employer contribution?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Is that good, Laura? You got it all?
I think so, let me see.
Okay.
Version 4, option 3, with changing the contribution, changing the increase for the PPO 500 to 8.3, and for the PPO 1500 to 3.1%
Right.
on PPO plans, and grandfathering the current bariatric patients for 6 months, and adopt other plan design changes.
Yep.
So the employer contributions will automatically adjust once you apply all these
Yes.
changes?
Yes. Yep.
Does that need to be in the motion?
No.
The district?
They're automatic.
No, so
It's gonna happen.
It will happen.
Yeah, it'll happen regardless.
It's gotta come somewhere.
So, and remember, you have the pre-enrollment or pre-open enrollment will be the fully insured equivalent premiums that are built by the actuaries. So they'll be calculated out for each plan. And then there's a post-enrollment report, which we went over at the last meeting, which is the PAR report, or the Premium Adequacy Report. So as employees move from your 500 to your 1500 to your high deductible plan, that can adjust the premium that was required to cover them, and you'll generally see a reduction the more you get to move to the high deductible plan. So you'll get those two reports, and that will spit out exactly what Mr. Norris just said.
Can we have an updated version 4
Sure.
with all these changes too? Okay,
Yep.
good, perfect, thank you.
Did I get a second?
Second. No, Nancy can second, I second the last one.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Wow.
Whew.
Thank you for all that work, that makes it really
Wow.
helpful to figure out.
Absolutely.
There are always 5 options.
Wonderful, thank you guys.
You want
Okay,
these back?
where are we at?
Take
This
this
is
out.
really
Yeah, you can give us
virtual.
an hour,
You know, we're
whatever.
running pretty late. How do you guys feel about tabling the decision support
I'll
tool?
make a motion to table the rest of
The agenda?
So if I could, I'll just make a recommendation. I think you're going to want the decision support tool regardless of any plan design changes you just made, because that is exactly what the employees need to see that the HSA is more viable than they kind of initially think, but just in general discussion. So decision support tool is one of those things that doesn't have to be decided upon tonight. So that would be a preparation for open enrollment, kind of a discussion. After you've made the
Next time we
decision
talk
to
about
do
wellness.
plan design changes,
Is there
then you...
cost for that? How much do you have to pay? Who
So
pays for
we
that?
have a free tool where the member would have to actually input their plan information.
Right.
What their copays are, what their deductibles are, out of
Right.
pockets. To load the plans in there, the cost is about $10,000. And there are other tools out there besides UMR's, the benefit being that this is on their landing page.
Right.
So I'd be happy to do a demo of the UMR product. I'm sure CBIZ could do a demo of others. But I can also send out just flyers and informational guides on the tool, if that's easier for you to look at it that way.
There.
I would just say having the plans loaded with the premiums is the way to go because they will
Much
not
easier.
enter their information.
I couldn't
They
put
won't
in
even
all
know
that
they're
stuff.
also-
They won't know it. They'll be in Laura's office.
Having on the
Yeah.
UMR landing page is also probably a good idea.
Yeah, you want it to be user-friendly if we want to make it easy for them to see it and
To
to,
understand that?
yeah.
Okay, so for our next meeting,
$10,000, really, that much?
It's a one-time load, and then thereafter, minimal dollars if we have to make changes.
Oh, got it.
So if you decide in later years you want to add a plan or change,
All right, so it's just that one.
Yeah.
it's one
First
time load,
time.
load code.
Okay.
It's a, yeah.
Okay. Yes, so I think we need it too.
okay, trust financial reporting.
Yeah,
4.28.
He kind of gave a brief.
Yeah.
Okay, 4.2.
Here's the important stuff.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. I'll send out the income statement and the balance sheet via email so that you do have a copy.
Perfect.
Cash at 2.48, that's up $300,000. The only thing that we didn't discuss earlier that I'd like to mention is we have seen leveling in our claims, but the IBNR at that $850,000, that's still a very rough estimate and probably overstated as we discussed. But I'll send these out via email so that you have that.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Request for future agenda items? I'd like to add a request to revisit the wellness for an information and action item at our next meeting. And then also for decision and action on the decision support tool.
Okay.
And possibly a demonstration at that meeting. Okay, really quickly, can we look at next meeting options? We were scheduled.
So originally you had a meeting scheduled in 2 weeks.
For
in case-
February 15th.
For the next week, if, in case you couldn't arrive at decisions on the
Right.
benefit plans.
So I don't think that we need
You
that
don't need
meeting
that one.
anymore. So we don't have to worry about that. So I'm looking at maybe the beginning of April or the end of March for this next meeting.
Well,
How
the
does
beginning of April, I'm
everybody
going to
feel?
I
travel
would say
in March.
March.
March, okay.
I would think you'd
What
want.
date are you looking at?
So we are on spring break the week of the 19th. So how about the week of the 12th? How does everybody look for that week?
On Thursday?
I leave
I don't
on
know.
Tuesday
On
that
Thursday?
week.
You leave on Tuesday, okay. How about the week of the 5th? That would be March 8th, would be the Thursday.
That's all right.
That's
I'll-
fine.
Does that look okay for
Think so.
everybody?
I'm not going to be available.
You're not available that day, let's see. Can anybody do Tuesday, the 6th?
I have a meeting that night.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. We're taking this to the board on the 13th, so we won't be able to do that.
That was the only thing I was going to
How
ask,
about
is
the
is there
week-
anything that you don't have that you need to be
Need
able
for
to
the
take it to the
board?
board?
How about Monday the 5th or Wednesday the 7th?
Monday, the 5th works. Can everybody do Monday the 5th?
I forgot my calendar. I don't have it on my phone. I can,
Monday the 5th works for me.
Are you teaching that
When
day?
do you teach?
Monday and Wednesday until 5:30. So I'd be late, but
Why don't we do a 6 o'clock meeting? on the
6
5th?
o'clock on Monday the 5th? Ooh, fun Monday.
Works
Does that
for
work
me.
for everybody?
Works
for me.
Monday the 5th?
Yep.
6 o'clock, okay. And then, yes, I do need an update on version 4, the one that we selected. So I need that for the board, and then
Linda.
we'll prep and I'm hoping that we can put it on the consent. So, but we will also have to present to IBB. So I'll circle back with CBIZ
Yeah.
on discussing
What
what
you
that
need.
presentation looks like. March 5th, 6 o'clock. Okay, perfect. And then wellness and
Wellness and
decision
tool.
support tools.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
wonderful. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
A second? Wonderful. All in favor?
aye, aye, aye.
All right, thank you all so very much.
It was, actually, it's kind of.
Really appreciate
You guys got
it.
the meeting next week though, right?
No
Yes,
meeting
you
next
did.
week, right?
Right.
Cancel
Done.
next
We don't
week's
have to do
meeting.
next
No,
week.
next week.
Good.
No,
It was worse
we're
than
canceled.
that.
Thank you guys so very much.
these back to you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Is your pen?
Thanks for keeping that meeting going, Laura. Do you need us to sign anything
just
before we
these
leave? Are we good?
Just 'cause those are-
Oh, yes, I do. Oh
I
my
thought
goodness,
so.
thank you so much.
There's
You're so on
usually,
top of things.
no, there's usually
Here we
somebody
go. This is
something
the
to
minutes.
sign.
Yep, you got it. The minutes from last time,
Yeah,
from January
pretty
18th,
busy.
please. Thank you so much. Ended up like having-
Life doesn't slow down, that's for
All
sure.
right, take care.
Good to see
Do
you.
you
Yeah.
guys, does CBIZ want these back?
Oh, yes.
Just
Yes,
those
yes.
ones.
Just that one.
What?
Okay.
I know. I know you have.